Welcome back, everyone, to Lesser Known Operators. I'm your host, Nicholas Allen, and my guest today is Dr. Dave Walton, the man behind TF Voodoo. Dave is a retired Green Beret who is a Special Forces assessment and selection subject matter expert, a land nav guru who provides Special Forces assessment and selection prep, land nav, rucking, and mindset guidance. You can check him out at tfvoodoo.com, and I have links to his socials in the show description. Today's episode is brought to you by Precision Wellness Group and Dr. Taylor Bosley. Precision Wellness Group provides bioidentical hormone therapy, evidence-based personalized medicine, and telemedicine across the United States. Dr. Taylor Bosley is the founder and medical director who is an emergency medicine physician, a U.S. Army veteran, and a former Green Beret. If this is something that you've been thinking about for a long time or just hearing about it now, reach out to Precision Wellness Group, give them a call, get a consultation, and see what Precision Wellness Group can do for you. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, pass these episodes along. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Dr. Dave Walton, welcome to Lesser Known Operators. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me, brother. I feel honored to know that I'm a lesser known operator now. It feels like I've reached a milestone. I was unknown. Now I'm just lesser known.
So it's an upgrade, not a downgrade?
Oh, 100% upgrade, brother. Don't sell yourself short, man. We're killing it now.
I tell people the name and they kind of chuckle and they go, "That's pretty good."
I think it's perfect. You know, it's funny because I think it captures something that we're missing right now. So there's 100 podcasts out there, and they're all fighting for like tier one guys that like been in the mix and like, just been, have, silver stars, medals of honor. And I'm like, that's like less than 0.1% of the population. What about what's the norm? What about everybody else? So if you're a young high school kid and you're like an aspiring operator, you think that like, if I don't earn a silver star or a medal of honor, I'm a shitbag. And it's like, no, man, like service is service, brother. Like you like the norm is like, go do your job, be competent, be good, maybe do some cool missions, but like get home alive and serve your community and serve your family and serve your team. It's not all about like medals of honor. You know what I mean? So, because if that's your metric, brother, you're going to be very disappointed when you retire eventually.
Oh, yeah. And what I hope people take from the show is like my last episode, perfect example that came out earlier this week. Adam Klakowitz, right, was an Army map maker, which is, I think, as far as you can get still in the military, away from being a Green Beret, and then just decides to go to selection and has a 20-year career in 3rd, 7th, and 20th group, and goes to a special missions unit. Like, that's just a regular dude.
I can one up that. I don't want to be a one upper, Nick, but I'm going to one up it. I went to a selection with a guy that was in the Army band. He was in the Army band. He had. So back in the day, the Army used to have a program. They may still have it. I don't know. But if you had one of these specialty skills, like you were a concert, cellist or flautist, and I think this guy was a flautist, which is that's like really far off the spectrum. And they had a program that you could come in. You went to like a special basic training at like Fort Benjamin Harrison, and it wasn't like a regular basic. It was like a condensed basic. And then he came in as an E6, or right to E6, and he, about a year and a half later, he ended up going to this selection, and he was in my class. And the first time he had ever been issued a rucksack was at selection. Like so when he was training up, he went to a surplus store and bought a rucksack. It was already put together. So they issued him one there, and he didn't know how to put it together. Like he was just like, and this was an Alice ruck that was like idiot proof. And he was like, "Hey, when you guys show me how to do this?" So it's all these SF guys, all these Ranger guys, and the flautist from the Army band. Holy smokes, that guy was way out of his depth.
It takes, like, if you're going to be able to do it, then you're just going to do it. And that's what I say about selection, or like, and then especially when I talk about generations, right? Because I had some guys that were on in the early generations, and they said, "Man, what you guys have to go through in selection now and all that stuff, that's tough." I said, "You guys were at the top of if you switched the people around, you're still going to be at the top. The people that are going to make it are going to make it no matter what.
Yeah, I fought long and hard on that. So I went to selection in '97, which is officially the last hard class. But I've been studying selection for 20 years, and I think selection is harder now than it's ever been. But I think you're right. So a lot of guys ask me, I mentor young kids that are coming up into the pipeline, and they'll always ask, like, what makes a Green Beret special? And I said, I think are Green Berets special because they're Green Berets, or are they Green Berets because they're special? And to your point, I think I think that you just are, and you go to selection not to get selected, but to prove that you have it. Like, you either have it or you don't, and you go there to prove it. And so when you look at the data for selection over the years, it's about the same as it's always been. Like, it never goes off more than a few beats. It'll dip. It dipped a couple of years ago. During COVID, it was down into the low 20s. We had one class that was at 10%, but it's historically about 36%. And it really doesn't matter how you monkey with it, what you do with it. It's about the same. The same thing for the Q course. Doesn't matter if language is first or last or in the middle. The numbers are it kind of just is. That's what it does. And so I got into the space of mentoring guys for selection. I wrote a book about it and all that. And like, there is never a time that you've had more access to information. We'll tell you exactly what selection is. We won't tell you the standards, but we'll tell you, exactly what you're going to be doing damn near every day. Swick's got social media. They put more info out on social media than you could possibly imagine. It would have blown your mind to have that way back when you went through in 2011. So it's not a knowledge gap. It's not a skills gap. It's like a, I don't know, a discipline gap, not a motivation gap, but like you just got to go and do it. And so, for a guy that makes his living on SFAS prep, that should tell you something. I'm telling you, you got to go make 2025 the year that you just fucking figure it out and go. You don't have to be perfect. Just show up, train up, do it right, be fit. We'll tell you the metrics for be fit. Know how to land nav. Land nav's killing guys right now, but just show up, man. Show up and prove that you got what it takes, And I'm that's becoming more and more my standard advice now. Just go. I hope my advice is never just don't quit, because that's horrible advice. But just go. You got to go. You got to commit and do it.
That's all I got from my first sergeant, field artillery unit. He said, just don't fucking quit. But
I didn't even get that.
The farther you get from Bragg, they don't have any idea, especially years ago, what it entails. Everything was a rumor or a ghost. There was a guy who went, and then he went, and then went into Q course, and then he becomes this apparition that wanders the halls that they talk about. He's still on NCOER bullets years down the line, and people are because some NCO took him to a board when he was in E3, and then he went to selection and all this other shit.
I had a guy like that in my unit. He went about 6 months before I did. He was an E5, and he was an unknown entity. And then he came back, and word gets around. Oh, Ramirez got selected. And all of a sudden, he becomes like this celebrity in the unit. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's like, "Oh, there he is! Like, let me touch him." And that's what it was like for me. I was like, man, that guy, I can't believe he did it, because no one knew. We had no idea what selection was. There was no social media there. I remember I got issued my prep back then. I wish I'd grabbed it. It's in my workshop. It was a little pamphlet about yay big, and it was like a little plastic paper, and it was like a 6-week prep program. And that was what they gave you. And that was like the Bible. And it had on it, workouts, and the workouts were, my God, you look at them today, you're like, what the hell are we doing? But you had to fill it out. You had to put your name and rank and the date that you completed it. And you were told, the recruiters told us, you got to turn that thing in. You got to turn that in when you go to selection. And I was like, oh, this is how they know you're ready to go. And so I was like, okay, good. I'm gonna fill it out and diligently. Got all my numbers written there and everything. And then when I reported into Bragg, I handed it to the guy when we were reporting in line. And he looked at it like he was like, what the fuck is this, man? And I was like, there's my booklet, Sergeant. And he looked at it and like threw it right in the trash can right in front of me. I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm getting into. I was clueless.
No. I mean, prior to 2 weeks in hell, there was nothing. It was all just a rumor, or you're getting stuff from the SF recruiter. And from what I've gathered from everyone, all they've told you was just be good at rucking. And that was it. Just, I mean, that's strong advice. I think that's great advice. If you are good at rucking and you can just mentally just hang in there, you're going to probably be pretty okay.
Yeah, rucking is the number one predictor of success. So there's been multiple studies on this. Rucking is the most predictive event of your SFA success. Your rucking performance is 6 times more predictive than the next metric. So you're right. If you can ruck, you're like 50% there. And then the next big thing that gets guys is land nav. And what's land nav but rucking between unknown points? So it's
And
like
banana spiders, the banana spiders and rucking. That's 84% of it.
that you're almost there. Yeah, heck yeah. Yeah, if you can sew on your the little white engineer tape on your uniforms, I think you're there. Yeah, so I think you're right. Rucking is important, but there's a couple of new events in selection that are getting guys. But we know what they are. It's all a known thing, and guys are still failing it at below. We are below historical levels, but slowly rising up to that 36%, which is the historical average. And there has never been a time when there's been more information out there. There's my books, there's a couple other books, the social media, the internet, everything's out there, man. If you don't know what you're getting into, then you're living under a rock.
All right. So stay with me on this one. I kind of put this together in prep today, right? So we had nothing for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, it was Rep 63, right?
Yeah.
It went OJT to Rep 63, and some weird stuff. And then if National Guard, it was even weirder. But so we get to 2 weeks in hell. That's the establishment. And then we go from there to, a lot of information's on the open source. The internet's coming up, social media. And then these guys start to pop up where their whole business, including yourself, is to get people selected. And now, as of recently, last month or so, SFAS has its own Instagram. In 2010, when the command at Camp McCall agreed to do 2 weeks in hell, did they start to recognize the population decline and the quality of soldier coming in, and then say we need to start letting information out the door to prep the people coming in so they'll be better candidates when they get here? And that has led to where we are today.
I wish you could say that it was a strategic effort. I think it comes and goes in spurts, depends on who's in charge. So a couple of things that we missed in that timeline. That's a good timeline. In 2006, Joe Martin published Get Selected, which was he was the first. He's a 7th group guy, and had the very first. He ran the very first SOPC class, what was then SOPC, Special Operations Prep and Conditioning. Now it's called SFPC, Special Forces Prep and Conditioning. He ran the very first class, and when he moved on, he wrote Get Selected, and it was sort of a half of it was about selection, and half of it was like an autobiography from his time in. And it was an okay book. It was, for its time, it was groundbreaking. It was the only thing out there. And then in like 2009, Dick Couch wrote Chosen Soldier. I think he's a former SEAL, and he wrote about sort of the Q course and a little bit about selection. So there was some stuff published. 2 Weeks in Hell came out, but man, I think that's tough to find. 2 Weeks in Hell, actually, they have done a good job of, I don't know if it's been intentional, but of scrubbing that from the internet. It's actually harder to get a hold of than you'd think, because I don't think it represents selection very well. It was if all you knew about selection was 2 Weeks in Hell, you'd think it was cadre yelling at you the whole time, throwing up in the mulch pit, picking it up, putting it in your pocket, and it's like. And my recollection of Log and Rifle PT, so that everyone remembers it as Log and Rifle PT. My recollection of Log and Rifle PT was that it was kind of a break. It was kind of easy. It was the one time where the cadre, where you knew what was up with the cadre. Prior to, outside of that 2 or 3 hour block of instruction, I'll use that air quotes there. The cadre didn't even acknowledge you. Like, you'd ask them a question, they'd be like, "Do what you think is best, candidate," like real stone faced. And it was like, "Ooh, man, it's kind of freak you out a little bit." So when it came to logging right for PT, I was like, this is awesome. I know exactly what's going on. I know exactly what my role is here. Cadre's going to yell at me. I got to grunt and moan and push the log up, and I'm good to go. Like, cool, because that's like every other school I've been to in the Army. And but the reality of it is, the selection was the opposite of that. Selection was like the unknown and unknowable. We're going to give you these vague instructions about this weird task we want you to do, and then just go do it. And if you ask any questions, we're going to say, do what you think is best. And that's what really messed with guys. Take your instructions from the board. And it was like dudes that broke dudes down. They were like, I need task, condition, and standard. You're just giving me task and condition, and it's freaking me the fuck out, man. Like, I don't know how to respond to that. And you saw that's why dudes would lose their minds out there. So I think 2 weeks in hell was a disservice. I think what so then over time there have been efforts to sort of publicize what goes on at SWIC. I won't say talk about selection, but SWIC's got a pretty robust social media channel, and then of course earlier this year SFAS got its own. I think they'll have like 4 or 5 videos, but there's been a couple of YouTube folks that have done stuff out there. But if you look at what they do, it's like, man, that's not representative of selection. So I think what was out there did not give you an accurate reflection of what selection was. Certainly not accurate enough to combat, to your point, the ghosts, the guys that went, the rumors, I heard, I got a buddy that went and he almost made it and he told me this is what it was. So you had this weird, like this almost insane zeitgeist about what selection was. And so you thought that it took superhuman strength with Mensa-like IQs and no faults. Like you had to go there and be the perfect guy. And yet you had to be yoked up and look like an Olympic gymnast and ruck fast and run 5-minute miles and all that business. And so the same amount of guys were failing. So here's what happened. The same amount of guys were failing, but they didn't want to admit that they failed because they just didn't meet the standard. They didn't know what the standard was, but they didn't meet it. So they would, in their mind, sort of to protect themselves from maybe a moral injury, and say, I was really, really good, but the standards are impossibly high. You have to be, leap over tall buildings and faster than a train. And so the popular notion of what a selection worthy candidate was changed to this unreachable standard. And so the guys would just lie. They'd say, I didn't get selected because, listen, I was definitely good enough. I'm fit as hell. I didn't get selected because the cadre didn't like my tattoos, or I didn't get selected because I'm a Latino guy, or I didn't get selected because I have a Ranger tab, or I don't have enough combat deployment time. Nothing could be further from the truth. None of that makes any difference whatsoever. The only thing that matters at selection is your performance. If your performance doesn't meet the standard, which we're not going to tell you, then you don't get selected. But that's the exact same way it was when you and I went. You still had to perform, but we had no expectation of anything else, because we had no expectation of anything. Like, it was just like, show up and put out. So you just showed up and put out. You didn't overthink it, right? So I think there's nowadays a little paralysis by analysis. And of course, I'm adding to that analysis, or that paralysis, because I'm injecting a bunch of incorrect information into the analysis component. So I'm definitely to blame for at least part of that. But the reality of those, to your point earlier about, has the recruitment population changed? And the answer to that is 100% yes. That's the one thing that has changed. The selection has not changed. The standards have not changed. The events are virtually identical. There's been a few very minor changes, but not significant. The cadre haven't changed. SWIC hasn't changed. Camp McCall looks way different than it was when you went through. It's beautiful now, man. Beautiful barracks, and it's a real Shangri-La out there. But the selection itself at its core hasn't changed. What has changed is the recruiting population. And so kids these days are not better or worse. Let me be clear about that. I'm not saying that they're, the kids these days, not better or worse, just different. So kids nowadays, there two conditions exist. One is that they are conditioned by society It's our fault because we're a society, social media in particular, in that they are conditioned to get positive and immediate feedback. So think about that. When you go on social media and you feel the rush, when you do a post on Instagram and you starts getting likes, your phone starts buzzing in your hand. You literally get a haptic response in your hand. Like it feels good. And if somebody gives you a negative comment, you can delete it. So it's like, hey, I'm going to curate my life from the moment I can pick up a smartphone and thumb my thoughts into it, that I'm going to curate how I will interact with the world, and it will be immediate and positive feedback. So that's what they're conditioned to. So that's number one. And number two is that because they grew up in that environment, they have developed a very keen sense of risk. So they will not engage in an activity unless that reward is both positive and immediate. So tell me about selection and the Q course and the soft lifestyle. What about that process was positive and or immediate? Like it was all negative. Like, hey man, you get selected and they're like, congratulations. It only gets harder from here. You're like, fuck. And then you go to the Q course and they're like, congratulations, shut up, get in line. Next week's the test. It only gets harder. And then you pass that test. And then next week, the rucks get heavier. And you're just like, man almighty. Like there's nothing about that that's positive or immediate. So if you're a young kid and you're looking at that potential, that pipeline, you are thinking, man, what's the payout? The payout is at least a year away, at least probably 18 months to 2 years when you throw in selection and the PCS and all that business. So it's like, no wonder these kids don't want to go do that. Like we're just going to kick you in the balls for 2 years. Like who wants to sign up for that? And the chances of you making it and actually earning your beret are half what they are you making it. So two-thirds of everybody that tries will not make it. And it's like, how on earth is that attractive? No one wants to do that. So kids these days, and it's not I'm not blaming them. It's not their fault. That's what they are. So the only way you can combat that is to give them information. They're used to it. Like they're used to having a phone in their hand. With this device, I can connect with the knowledge of the entire world, not the wisdom, but the knowledge of the entire world. I can get all that information. All I got to do is enter in the right prompt, and the internet shall feed it to me. So it's like, man, give me all that information. And then this thing about selection shows up, and it's like, there's no information. Or the information that you get is from the 2/3 of guys, which is the majority of the guys that go, that failed, that are telling you, I didn't get selected because my tattoos or because of my race or because of my deployments or whatever. So of course they're going to be like, I don't want to go. So the challenge then becomes for the leadership is to give them enough information that protects the sanctity of the process. Don't tell them the standards, but like, don't let the lies win. Don't let the kids, the barracks lawyers that failed out of selection, don't let them set the strategic communications environment. And you mentioned at the top, SWIC just this year, like within the last 2 months, finally set up an Instagram. So not only were they not engaging appropriately in the information environment, they weren't engaging at all. Like they didn't like what's going on there. Like what a massive miss. So I think just them getting an Instagram account is huge, because that's the truth, right? You know what I mean? Like nobody can deny that. Hey, I saw it on a SWIC Instagram page. That's what the requirement is, and that's been really big. And we saw that actually about a year ago. When Sergeant Major Almonte took over their Chewy's a 7th group guy, he took over the Sergeant Major at selection, and they did a couple of Instagram posts on the SWIC's main page, and they had Chewy was interviewing the senior cadre, to his back, and it was cool guy SF stuff, and he said, hey, what's a candidate have to do to be successful? And the guy was like, you got to be able to do this many push-ups, this many pull-ups, and ruck this fast. And all of a sudden, just that little information, just that tiny little bit of information, which, by the way, we already knew, because what the PT test standards are. You have to take a PT test within 30 minutes of going. So we knew what those were, but just that little information campaign, that 45-second video was like earth shattering. Like, the dudes are like, that's the standard. That's what we got to meet now. It was like, I was like, man, I've been saying this for years. That's all we got to do is tell them. You don't have to tell them everything, but just tell them the truth, and the truth shall win. So I think has been a realization in the last 2 years, at least, of we need to meet the population where it is. And so the reality of it is young kids, they have a different relationship with risk and reward, as I just explained. So we need to show them, at least show them that the risk is not a gamble, right? So a gamble is a risk that you can't recover from. A risk is something that you do that you can recover from, and a kid can recover from going to selection psychologically. He can recover from going to selection and failing as long as he knows he's going to get a fair shot. So that's been my whole message this whole time is like, hey, I'm going to tell you what they're going to do to you at selection, and it sucks, but it's fair. Like everyone gets treated the same. The standards don't change. It's not cadre roulette. It's like you show up and you got to meet the standard. You don't know what the standard is, and I'm not going to tell you, but that's the deal.
No, that's not part of the game. You don't get to know. I mean, so that's why. So that kind of breaks down why command is doing what it's doing, because it's unavoidable. The technology is going to continue to evolve, and it's just you have to cater to your audience. Did they wait too long? Probably. To get out ahead of things, which is disappointing because we're the premier fucking special operations unit in the world, or whatever the fuck we're supposed to. Our tagline is.
We live next door to the PSYOPs guys. That's PSYOPs what they
right
do.
Next door. Even though I heard there's some news about them, but that's for them to deal with. But they weren't on Hex's memo. But that's why they're doing it. So why do you feel, after your time in special forces and you've gotten out and retired, are you drawn back to continue to improve special forces after you're done with it?
I'd say, I'll be honest, and I wrote this in the chapter of my first book, Ruck, Up or Shut Up, and I don't want to be corny about this, but I, honest to God, feel a sense of duty. I have a duty because of my skills and experience. So I went through selection in 1997, graduated the Q course in 2000, went to 7th Group, was a team leader, did my mid-career at JSOC, and then retired out of the Special Warfare Center. And my last assignment in the Special Warfare Center, one of the things that was in my leadership portfolio was selection. So I got, and it was during a time when we were doing a sort of a, for lack of a better term, a curriculum review and analysis. And we were looking at what selection does and why it does it. So in that process, I got to dig really deep into selection. I got to know that thing inside and out. I helped write the POI, so to speak. So I know exactly what selection is and what it's supposed to do and what it measures and all that business. And then I retired. I went on to get my doctorate, and I wrote my dissertation about selection. And then I carried that on into my post-military career in academia, where I made that my special area of emphasis, where I've written on it extensively, studied it. I think it's probably fair to say that I've walked more selection than anybody else. I don't know if anybody else has done it as long as I have. There's guys that have been at selection probably longer than me, some of the support guys, but I don't think anybody's walked as much as I have. So I have this unique knowledge about selection. I know the truth about selection. I know what it's supposed to do, and it is pure. There is something that is so pure about selection and the proof of that is that it works. Like, it may not get it right every time. Some guys get through that shouldn't, some guys don't get through that should. But by and large, it works. It's pure, and I want people to understand that. So when 5 years ago, when I first started this, my public persona speaking about selection, the only thing that was out there was the opposite of the truth. It was lies. It was these barracks lawyers. It was these guys that failed, and it was, I didn't get selected because of the racist or cadre roulette, or I didn't have a ranger tab. And I was like, no, man, that's not true. So I felt I had a duty to combat that mis and disinformation. I was like, that's not true. Not only is that not true, if that was true, that is a devastating indictment of the brotherhood, of the regiment, that we would found our selection processes on bigotry, racism, and bias. And it's like, man, that's so far from the truth. So 5 years ago when I started speaking publicly about selection, being mindful of my non-disclosure agreement, I have, because of my duty positions and my research work, all sponsored by SWIC, I had unique placement and access, and I want to honor that trust that they've given me. So I'm not going to give up the standards. But you see these little snippets of what selection is that SWIC sponsors and puts out there, and outside of the correct context, you might believe those falsehoods. You might believe those barracks lawyers. And if they're the only ones talking, then of course you're going to believe them because you don't have an option. That's the only message out there. So I started to get the message out there of the truth about selection. The rucking is number one. Here's what land nav is. Here's the strength standards. Here's your speed standards. But without giving the selection standards. Like here's my learned opinion. And if you look at what, like, SWIC has actually published quite a bit. They've sponsored many like legitimate academic studies where like full-blown research teams have gone out and studied selection and published the articles, like peer-reviewed articles with like rich, detailed data about selection. Like it's not a secret about what selection is, how it's formed. Gate week, land nav week, team week, what the events look like. Christ, you go on Switch social media, there's probably 15 events on there right now that they're showing you. Outside of context, you don't really know what they mean. So I think that because selection is so pure, it's so good, it deserves to have the truth told about it while still protecting the secrets, the standards. And so that's what I started to do. I literally, honest to God, I felt duty bound to do that. I could not let the barracks lawyers continue to disparage the brotherhood, to talk shit about my brothers. These are I'm retired, but I'm not expired. And those guys running selection are my brothers, whether I know them or not. They are my brothers, and I shall defend their honor. That is what it means to be a Green Beret. I will stand in the gap, and I will stand next to you, and we shall defend this. And because SWIC wasn't defending it, the liars were winning, and I was like, I can't abide by that. Just it hurt me in my soul. And so to not to sound corny, but like I felt duty bound to do it. And what I have found is that in that process of telling the story of selection while protecting the secrets, is that there's been a tremendous positive support coming from the regiment. I get messages literally every day from a guy in the regiment, including cadre, that are like, "Hey man, love what you're doing. I'd like to see you do it this way." Like everyone kind of, surprise, Green Berets have strong opinions on fucking everything.
No,
so
come
like,
on.
Believe it or not, man, it's true. So like they'll say like, "Hey, I wish you'd do it this way. I love what you do, but do it the way I want you to do it." So there's always a discussion to be had there, and I'm totally open to those discussions. But so like guys are responding to that. Like guys in the regiment, they sense that like, "Hey man, that's a good thing." And where you really get a lot of support is retirees, like guys like us that are out. We've got some distance from the trauma of the service. And you start to think back and you think like how can I continue to serve the regiment? So I felt like I had a duty, and I felt like that was how I was going to continue to serve the regiment. I can't wear a ruck anymore. I can't fast rope. I could fast rope once, but I'd be dead.
Yeah, you can.
One time.
Yeah, you get one more
and so
go,
so
and
I
that's it.
can't do those missions anymore. What missions can I do? I still have a brain. I'm a pretty decent writer. I like to talk shit. So let me start talking some shit and write it down and publish some books and get it out there. And so the response from the regiment's been pretty strong. Not 100% positive. There's some guys that are like, "You're a fucking cheater. You're a grifter," or whatever. I get that, and I'm not really interested in entertaining those ideas. I'll hear them out, but 99% of those guys have never read anything I've written, and they
just snatch headlines. People just take something out of context.
It's clickbait in real life, right? Yeah.
They'll take a funny reel and they'll twist it because I've found there's always the other side. Everybody's in a competition to have the shittiest time. It's like we're in a race to the bottom. And they go, "No, I'm not going to get involved with that. I'm going the other direction up current as best I can. I'm not." Well,
that's my joke. I always say that everybody says they've been to the last hard class. I went 97.
Nope. I was in the first easy class. I'm the first to admit it. Yep.
I always joke, I would love to be the guy in the first easy class. Are you kidding me? Perfect opportunity. I'd love to do that. Make Ranger School 40 days. Send me, I'll go. But so you're right. Guys are in a competition. It's they want it done, but they want it done their way. So the message from the regiment has been almost universally positive. But the message from the candidate population, which is the guys that I really wanted to speak to tell them that it's going to suck. Selection's going to suck. I always say, there are no good answers at selection. There are only bad answers. And your job as a candidate is to find the least bad answer and then execute it violently. There is no good way to make an apparatus. Like, they all suck. Those poles slide, those wheels wobble, the lashings come undone. They're always just a few inches too short. Nothing is good at selection. It's all bad. Your job is to pick the least bad way. But the response from the candidates out there, from the aspiring candidates, has been universally positive. Like, I thought this, and man, you have opened my eyes. Like, I now know that I'm going to get a fair shot. I know it's going to suck. I understand that, and I accept that. Matter of fact, not only do I accept that, I welcome that. That's what they want. They want to be tested. We used to have rites of passage for young men in this country. And we have removed a lot of those. That's seen as toxic now. And so selection represents a rite of passage. And these young men are dying to have their shit kicked in, as long as it's fair. It can't just be for punishment's sake. Like, they're like, brother, load that shit on my back, but don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining. It can rain on me all night, but don't piss on me. And so the guys that are the next generation of guys, they're like, man, this is awesome. I now know I'm going to get a fair shot. Thank you. Now I'm moving forward, and I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to test my mettle. I'm going to do this thing. And there's been not an insignificant amount of guys also that have said, now that I know exactly how hard it's going to be, I know that life ain't for me. So I'm not going to go to selection. That's probably 2% of guys, but good on them for having that self-awareness to know that, like, they don't have what it takes.
But you will quickly find out right away. And people ask me, like, how do you know you should go? If you have any inkling that you want to go, you should go, and you'll find out if it's not for you right the fuck away. But at least you'll be able to say, I went, it wasn't for me. And as long as you're honest with yourself and honest with other people, I went, it was honest. Or don't make up some bullshit about, I didn't get selected for this. Or some lie to oversell yourself. Just be like, it wasn't for me. And that's very honorable. I love that.
I call it the 7 and 70 rule. I say, whenever I'm faced with one of these tough, like, sort of life, mentorship decisions, I'm fortunate that my father was very involved in my life as a kid. He's a great dad. He's still alive to this day. I'm going to visit him in a few weeks. I can't wait to go see him and have a good Philly cheesesteak with him. But, like, I always had a voice of reason to bounce these ideas off of. And a lot of these young kids don't, man. A lot of these kids come from fatherless homes. They don't have male figures in their lives. They're raised by the education system, which is 80% plus female. So they don't have that. So I like to give them, the advice I give guys is the 7 and 70 rule. When you're faced with these decisions, do what would make a 7-year-old you and a 70-year-old you proud. When you were 7 years old, what did you think about? I guarantee you didn't think about how excited you were to go to your sales job. Nobody fucking wants that. Nobody wants to go into sales for life. If you do, it's honorable, sure. When you were 7 years old,
as long as you like and subscribe, make sure you like and subscribe to the podcast, right. And we support you in any of your endeavors.
That's right. And be a sponsor. But 7-year-old you wanted to do commando shit. Like, you were building fucking forts in the woods. You were having dirt clod wars. If you were really advanced, you'd get a pack of bottle rockets and make an RPG with a pipe that was laying around in the basement. Like, you were up to fucking shenanigans. You were gooning when you were 7 years old. So now that you're 17 or 27 and you're thinking, what should I do with my life? What would 7-year-old you do? Like, what would make that kid proud? What would that kid go, I get to do that when I'm 27? Yeah, you should fucking do that. But you should balance that out with 70-year-old you. Because 7-year-old you might just want to sit around and eat candy all day. 70-year-old you knows that that's a bad idea. So find what 70-year-old you would look back and go, son, I'm proud of you. You did good. You done good. So whatever makes 7-year-old you and 70-year-old you equally proud is probably what you should do. And for me, when I was 7, man, I wanted to be a fucking commando. I wanted to grip a knife in my teeth and jump into a body of water. Like for me, I was like, that's what I want to do. I can remember when I was a little kid going to the pool, and I would practice. My mother probably loved me for this because I would practice for like hours getting in and out of the water as quietly as I could. Like breaking the go down, hold your breath, break the surface of the water and come out as slow as you could, get a little breath of air. And so that you couldn't hear the water trickling off your ears. And I was like, and in my mind back then, I was like, I'm commando training. I'm going to become a frogman I didn't know combat diving existed, but later on, I remember when I was at dive school in 2001, January 2001, I went to dive school down in Key West, and we had an instructor who was a little bit weird. Now that I'm saying this, he was a little bit weird, but he like was in the pool with us one day, and we were getting the shit kicked out of us. We were getting hammered, and he kind of pulled us aside and said, "Hey, man, like, why are you guys here? Like, don't you want to be commandos? Like, don't you want to do this frogman shit? Like you're staring at an amazing opportunity. Get your shit together." And then he went on to describe that when he was a kid, he would practice getting in and out of the pool, just like I described to you. And I was like, oh my God, he's in my head. This guy's he knows
Right
me, he gets
place.
me. And so I'm like, so to me, that's always stuck in my head. Is that's what I wanted to do. And I want kids that aren't even aware that that's a possibility. I want these guys to know, like, you can get in and out of the water really quietly, like, and get paid to do it, and it's pretty fucking badass. So I like I said, I felt a sense of a duty to do that, and also now on the tail end of my career, 20 years on active duty, now another 10 in service to the regiment in retirement. I feel indebted. The regiment has given me far more than I could ever give back to it. I mean, it has shaped me as a man. It has shaped the way I think about the world. It gave me immense purpose for 20 years. I never had to question, why I was doing anything. It provided for me financially, it put me in a position to take advantage of the skills that it gave me, once I retired. And so, man, I owe it. I owe the regiment a debt here. And one of the best ways to pay that debt back is to prepare the next generation to take up the mantle. So that's why I'm in the business, and I don't think of it as a business. I don't make a ton of money on it. I pretty much break even. But it's still a worthy endeavor. It still serves a greater purpose beyond me. Again, it serves the regiment. So I envision in 10 years from now, there'll be a guy in every team room across USAFIC or USASOC that is there in part because I helped him get there. I in some small way, he read one of my books, and he got a little bit of coaching and mentoring and a little bit of knowledge, and he got prepared, and he went and did this selection and the Q course, and prepared himself appropriately, and he is now serving the regiment in part because I helped get him there. And I'm like, okay, that's one little chunk of my debt that's paid off now.
That's that's the legacy, right?
That's it.
That's like the beret. You can't buy the beret. You can't buy 10 years of giving people advice and mentoring them, and then to be down the road, and then there's people carrying on the shit that you gave them. You can't buy that. It's just like this, you know, this back here, right? I use SF as like my intro to get in the door with what I'm doing right now, and I
Yeah.
have a responsibility to uphold, I believe, a certain sense of or a certain level of professionalism. Whether I do that or not, that's yet to be seen. I'm trying to, though, hold myself to that standard, but you can't buy that. It's tough to explain to people. It's a very demanding career. Like, you're right. There's no gratification until you fucking get your own junior, and that's like 9 years down the road. Like
Yeah.
you could have just been a private up until this whole time, and then finally you
Yeah.
got a soldier. 9 years later. There's points where you'll have high points and you'll feel like you've won something, but it's never enough. It's never enough, and you'll finally
Yeah.
get to a point years down the road.
And I was an 18 alpha, so I never had a junior. So like maybe, in some weird way, all these guys that I'm helping bring up, maybe they're all my juniors, you know what I mean? But yeah, like that's what we do. We serve. And so it's just for me, it's an act of service. And to your point, I want to be professional about it. I want to do it the right way. I don't want to give up the standards and embarrass the regiment. I always want to be authentic and professional, although varying degrees of professional. I'm still going to talk shit, because if there's one thing you learn in the regiment is that if you don't talk shit, you ain't going to survive, because that's all day in the team room. So, you know, but that's sort of, this is just my continued service. These are guys are all my juniors, and it just feels right. You know what I mean? It really does.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. You can't be in the uniform anymore. Like I can't be in the uniform. I can't do these things, but I can talk to people and hopefully people hear my show, and then I can build this into something where people can come on here and talk about their business, or I can share their posts or whatever. And like when you messaged me, I was like, let me clear something up. I am 100% behind what you're doing. I support everybody except for a couple people in all of their ventures and everything they do. And that's what lesser known operators, I want it to be, is something that you can come to me and yeah, I'll promote your stuff and we can be
Yeah.
friends. We'll do an episode. We'll talk about your shit. We'll do some collaborations here and we'll all get bigger together. And that's really like the core of being SF, right? You're teaching and you're working with the people around you and you're spreading everything that you know to make everybody
A
else
force
better.
multiplier, man. This is how we force multiply now. You have created a G camp, and you're inviting partisans in, and you're gonna train them up, and you're gonna send them out in the world. And that is what, that's the unique skill set that Green Berets bring to the special operations quiver. Is that, Rangers do joint forcible entry and direct action raids, the world's finest infantry raiding force. Got it. SEALs do maritime direct action. They do a little bit of FID, but not really. Um, PJs do technical rescue and medical, but Green Berets do force multiplication. You send in 12 Green Berets into the hinterland, and in 6 months they'll have a battalion, 500 dudes organized, trained, and fighting. Like, that's what we do, and that takes a special personality. Uh, it takes you got to be a little bit weird to like be into that. And I think that's one of the things that's plaguing us as a regiment right now, is that we recruited a whole generation of guys that thought that they were going to do the GWAT forever. They thought everything was going to be direct action, kill capture, go out and shoot them up, kick in doors, throw flashbangs, and all that business. And the reality of it is that the GWAT was the anomaly. That was a very short period of time. We only did that because we couldn't stand up for ourselves and tell people that was a waste of Green Berets. And so we recruited a whole generation of guys that are like, that's all I wanted to do. And it's like, man, that's not what Green Berets do, brother. Like, Green Berets are teachers, force multipliers. So you got to change your mindset, or you got to get out of the regiment, because the guys that are most harshly dealing with those realities, with that change of identity, are guys that are troublemakers. They're the guys that are showing up on the blotters and having behavioral issues, and are very likely struggling with their identities, because that's what that is that's a change of their identities. And for a lot of guys, man, that's a real blow to the psyche. And then throwing on top of that operator syndrome with repeated TBIs, and your body starts breaking down. Everyone's got degenerative disc disease, and it's getting worse because all we do is wear body armor and jump out of airplanes and ruck march and all that bullshit. And so like I think we have a generation of guys that are a little bit in crisis. They're having an identity crisis, that they wanted to do door kicking stuff, and they're realizing that what Green Berets really do is teaching. And then they're realizing that like their bodies are starting to feel the effects of it, and they're saying, is that juice worth the squeeze? So I think there's a population of guys that are going to have to come to terms with that very, very soon. And they either have to change their identity, which is hard to do, not impossible, but hard to do, or they got to move on. They got to leave the regiment, and nobody wants to abandon the regiment. Nobody wants to leave it. You know what I mean? Like you literally bled for it, and so I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 or 5 years.
Everything swings. The pendulum swings one way, and it'll swing back the other way. Guys will adjust, or they'll get out, or they'll go to do other things. And it goes by, people are like, oh, I wanted to do this. But then you realize it's going to go by. It goes by so fast anyway
The
that
blink.
you might get to do that little thing for a year or two, and then that's it. And then you're at the schoolhouse, and then you're back. Then you got a team.
By the way, you're going to retire eventually. You're going to have to do something else. Like maybe 1% of you will go on to be contractors with the sweet Blackwater gigs, or go be a ground branch guy, CAA. But that's not the norm. And so like maybe start thinking, think about what 70-year-old you would want. Like what's the next version of you going to be? If you'd asked me 15 years ago, hey, are you going to be an academic with a doctorate and be writing books? And I'd be like, are you fucking high? Like I barely graduated high school. I stumbled my way through college. I'm not an academic. I'm not doing that. But that was the challenge that was presented to me, and now here I am, a doctor with multiple books, and I'm a learned scholar. I mean, look at these glasses. These things are like you can't be dumb and wear these things. So it's like that's my new identity, and I'm embracing it, man. I'm finding real value there. Of course, I've linked it back to my Green Beret time, so I'm sort of continuing my purpose. But like that's the future for you, brother. You can't kick doors forever. Eventually, you're going to have to like get a real job.
I think you're my third doctor, second PhD. And the third one was a doctor.
Yeah.
But both. Shout out to Jay McGinnis. He failed out of college his first try with a 0.5 GPA, I believe. I'd have to look back through my notes, but I was like,
that's pretty good.
That's pretty bad. And then he went on to be a doctor.
My freshman year, I had a 1.3 GPA. My freshman year, I don't know why my father kept me in college, but God bless him. He said, "Go back and get another year in." And that second year, I met my now wife, and she got me on the straight and narrow. But brother, I was not academically inclined, and now I'm a freaking doctor. So anything's possible. And that really speaks to who Green Berets are, though. Green Berets are adaptable, capable, intelligent. Like it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. So I think most Green Berets, I think all Green Berets are smart. They just apply themselves a little differently. Any one of them is capable of getting a doctorate. Being a doctor is not really about being smart. It's about having perseverance, about being willing to stick through all the bullshit they put you through. You don't have to be all that smart. I'm living proof of that. Went from a 1.3, and my doctoral GPA was a 4.0. So it was about perseverance and learning how I was smart. And so you just got to find what that next purpose is. I think the regiment will be fine. The regiment will live on. I think we are in the midst of going through some growing pains. I think senior leadership recognizes that, though. I thought it was telling. So you tell me what you think about this. So I'm not disparaging the USASOC Command Sergeant Major, Joanne Newman. Sergeant Major Newman's a phenomenal person, a very strong operational reputation. But what message does it send to all of the 18 Zulus out there that in the entire formation of 18 Zulus, not one of you is worthy of being the USASOC Command Sergeant Major? You guys are so fucked up that we are going to pick a female to be in charge of you all. Like that sends a message. And again, I'm not disparaging Sergeant Major Newman, but like somebody recognized that, like, hey, we need to get these guys, we need to yank a knot in their rope. And this sends a very clear message. You got to get your shit together, guys. Or you're not going to get any of the perks of being a Green Beret. and that played out. We also saw that in third group, when third group, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, they had the little run in with the drug traffickers out in Southern Pines. A dive team was involved with some drug trafficking and human trafficking, and for a while there, they revoked the no hat, no salute privilege on the compound out their group, and it was like, hey, get your shit together, or you shall not enjoy the privileges of being a Green Beret. So we've seen that on the micro and the macro.
So for the first statement you made,
Yeah.
No 18 Zulu capable of being the sergeant major, right? If you look for the symbolism in a discussion or in a decision, that's all you'll do is look. So that's what I'm going to draw out of that one instead of
Okay.
getting drawn into a
That's
debate
fair. That's a fair assessment.
for that one, because I don't have all the information, and I try not to make a decision unless I know, and I don't know the situation that really you're talking about. So, but
Yeah.
I would lean towards the symbolism there to err on my side of caution.
But it's
As
a
far
powerful
as
symbolism.
it is, and whatever message that officer or sergeant or that board is trying to get across, that's the decisions they're making, and I don't have any
Yeah.
visibility on that.
Yeah.
As far as mass punishment, it's never worked.
No.
So, I remember standing in formation and getting in trouble because other people got DUIs. So, taken away, or maybe they, were like, hey, we got to scare the shit out of the people here.
I think
And
they did it to send a message. Yeah. Yeah.
that could
You're
be
right. Mass punishment never works.
because SF or Special Operations Unit may be one of the only types of units where they can see the symbolism in that kind of decision to go, hey boys, let's tighten our shit up here in the team
Yeah.
room, and
Yeah.
start, getting our admin stuff done, looking better on paper so that nobody
Yeah.
fucking looks at us. Maybe,
Right.
but in a regular unit, that shit doesn't work.
No. But I think it may work a little bit more in a soft unit because guys are a little more tuned into it. They're a little more. They're smarter. They recognize that's like, ooh, like that doesn't do anything. Like I'll wear my hat and I'll salute. But the message is that we don't trust you, and it's like, oh man, that hurts because like brother, that's what I'm here to. I'm here to take the high risk missions, to go to the politically sensitive area. I go to mitigate risk, and if you're now telling me that you don't even trust me to not wear a hat and not salute, like if I've abused that so poorly, like what does that say about the operational realities? So I think that was a very a very deliberate attempt to send the message. No one cares if you wear a hat or salute. It was the message, and the message was get your shit together. And we've seen similar instances of that across the regiment at every group on some level or another. So that those aren't isolated incidents.
And guys fuck up, teams fuck up, incidents happen. And Sergeant Major told me this one night after there was a misplacing of a sensitive item. It wasn't lost. It was just one shelf over from where it was supposed to be. And we had to tear the building apart. But he goes, yeah, that happened, but he's only going to be the lowest guy on the totem pole until the next guy fucks up. So it won't last long. You just got to pick your head up and kind of drive on and get down the road, because if you dwell on it, then it's just going to eat you alive, and your reputation is going to recover more if you're able to build yourself back up.
You got to have a short memory in this business, man, because you think about it. We are going to give you the hardest missions, or you're going to get the most challenging tasks. You're bound to fail a bunch of them. Like you're going to fail a whole bunch. Like if you're not failing a lot, you're probably not pushing yourself enough. So like you got to have a short memory. Okay, I like to say I didn't fail. I either win or I learn. So I'm like, I'm going to take this little thing that we just did, and I didn't do it as well as I wanted to, or you wanted me to. I'm gonna learn from that, and the next time, brother, I'm gonna kill it. And if you take that mentality, like you can't beat me then, because I'm just gonna get strong. Every time you beat me down, I'm learning something, and I'm gonna come back a little bit better. You've got to have that mentality in SF, or you're not gonna survive. You'll beat yourself up way too much because you're gonna fail a whole bunch.
Yeah, it's a tough road. Speaking of road, I mean, you get through. Sounds like you stumbled through college, made it to the end. How did we get to being a commissioned officer in the United States Army?
Like I said, thank God for my wife, man. So I've been married 33 years this August.
Congratulations.
And we met in college. So we dated for 4 years before we got married. I was a shitbag in college. I was a boozer. Man, I was fucking fat and lazy. I was a total shitbag. And I met her, and she had her shit together, and her uncle was the ROTC instructor. And the word on the street was that ROTC is an easy A. And brother, I needed an easy A because I was hurting. So I said, I'm going to take this ROTC. It'll give me an in with this girl down the hall that I'm totally vibing on, and I'll get this easy A. So I started taking these ROTC classes, and man, it hit me. It was like inject that shit right into my veins, man. I loved everything about it, and it just spoke to me. And I was like, this is it, man. I have found it. A year later, I go to basic training. I'm a simultaneous membership program cadet, and I'm off and running. And now I've got a purpose here. Now I'm going to go active duty. And remember, 7-year-old me was, I'm going to jump into a body of water with a knife in my mouth. So I was like, I ain't doing that in any other business. They got rid of pirates, so I can't do it. Can't be a pirate anymore. So like, what else is there? Is this commando thing? I don't know what it is. There's no books about it. There's no movies about it. But it exists in the military. I love these military classes. So I'm in. That's my path. And I went all in on it. I got earned my commission. I graduated with a 2.35 GPA, and earned my commission. Went off to be an armor officer. Married my wife, and 2 days later, we were down in Elizabethtown, Kentucky, right outside of Fort Knox. A horrible place to be. Certainly the worst place you can honeymoon with your loved one. And became a tank platoon leader, and went down to Fort Hood as my first duty assignment. Great first assignment. We lived in the field. I ended up getting a rifle platoon, a mechanized rifle platoon, a tank platoon, and a scout platoon. So 3 straight years of 3 different platoons under the mentorship of 3 different non-commissioned officers that were all wildly different, incredibly competent, and absolutely unforgiving on shithead lieutenants. So they were like, Lieutenant, I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to learn. And God help you, in a year from now, I'm going to send you on your way, wipe your nose, and you'll be a better officer for it. And you won't have killed the platoon. So 3 years in a row, we lived in the field. Back then, at Fort Hood, we would go to the field on a Monday morning, drive out the motor pool with our vehicles, and maneuver all week long. I mean, just iteration after iteration after iteration, company attack, movement to contact, recon, all that stuff. And then Friday afternoon at like 2:00, they'd park all the vehicles together out in the woods. They'd put a couple privates on guard and set up a guard rotation and send everybody back to the rear. And you got Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night off. And then you came back to the field Monday morning and did it again. And we literally did that for 3 years, man. I lived in the field. And man, what a great environment to learn how to be a young leader, a young officer. Great NCO mentorship, just constantly getting thrown these field problems. And and I was like, this is the best thing ever. I'm gonna keep being a tanker for as long as I live. This is amazing. I get to shoot big guns and drive over cows, and holy fuck, this is amazing. And I remember my scout platoon sergeant pulled me aside and said, hey, this is not normal. Like you're not going to do this the rest of your career. If you love this field shit and you're good at it, like I can see you enjoy it and you're good at it, like you're going to have to find someplace else to do that. And I was like, no, man, I'm going to go to the 82nd. 82nd's got this light tank, this armored gun system. I'm going to go do that. That's the next thing. And I know the 82nd is at Bragg, and Bragg, I think, is where they make Green Berets at. So I'm going to go there and I'll figure it out. And then they announced that they were canceling the armored gun system program. And I was like, oh, fuck, there goes that's what I was going to go do. Like, it's gone now. What's next? And I said, well, I'm going to go SF. And I think it was like that day or the next day, I got a letter in the mail. Email didn't exist. I got a letter in the mail that said, come to your SF, everyone that was in the window, come to your required SF recruiter briefing. I was like, man, that's a sign from God, brother. I have no idea what that means. I just got my dreams of doing airborne stuff pulled out from under me, and the letter comes and says, "Come be a Green Beret." I was like, brother, that's it. Went to the briefing, signed up on the spot. 6 months later, I was at selection. Had no idea what I was getting into. Like I said, I had that little pamphlet, that little PT book. That's all I knew, and that lasted all of 15 seconds when I got to Fort Bragg. So I muddled my way through selection. I was very fortunate that as a young guy, when you're a young lieutenant, you're expected to know two things: troop leading procedures and PT. Like that's it. Like if you can read a map, even better. But everyone knows the lieutenants get lost, right? Which is not true at selection. But so like I was physically fit, and I could like manage tactical tasks. That's like all I could do. Show up at selection, and what is it? Be physically fit and manage these tactical tasks. And I was like, brother, I love it. So I got selected first time go, and did some other schools, and then showed back up to the Q course and nailed it. It was in my element, man. I absolutely thrived in that chaotic environment. Got assigned to 7th group, and took over my team. And lucky again, another phenomenal series of NCOs. Take me under their wing and show me what it means to be a Green Beret and a young leader of Green Berets. And the one thing that they really instilled in me that sticks with me to this day was that you, young captain, yeah, you're cool. You got all the tabs and you're fit and all that business, but your fucking job is to take care of us. Your job is to make sure that these men in this room are given the top cover to do their job. That's what you exist on this planet for. And I was like, Roger that, man. Like I got you, Big Sarge. And anytime I stepped even a smidge out of line, he'd pull me aside. John Stubbs would pull me aside and say, hey, Captain, remember we had that talk? Like, this is what I was talking about. Here's what you need to be doing now. I was like, thank God for good NCOs. So I was constantly mentored along the way. And I had a second team, Sergeant Stu, who was the same way. And entirely different personalities. One was the loving father, and one was the abusive older brother. And Stu beat the shit out of me, but I still learned a ton from him, and eternally thankful for what he did for me. His son is, by the way, still serving in the regiment. He came up after him, and so I learned all along the way that your job in SF is to serve others. As a leader, you serve your men. As a Green Beret, you serve the regiment. And that's how you show value, is your service to others. And that stuck with me. And then I did mid-career at JSOC, and then retired out of the Special Warfare Center. And all along the way, every assignment I had, I kept getting those lessons retaught to me. Service, competence, confidence, professionalism. Like it never went away. It was always drilled into me. And then I retired. And I think like most guys that do you do a full 20 years and retire, they pull that rug out from under you, and you're a little bit like, oh shit, like where do I stand? Like, what do I do with my hands? Like, I don't know what's going on here. But I was in the midst of that transition in academia, and I knew that even though I was doing something completely different, surprise, surprise, academia is entirely different from regiment life. I knew that I came from a strong foundation. I never forgot what my NCOs taught me: service, professionalism, competence. Like take care of the organization. Don't worry about yourself. You'll be just fine. And along the way, that's held true. I have always continued to do that. And then when the opportunity came to speak about selection, I saw, that's why again I go back. I saw it as service. I had a duty. I had to serve the regiment by not letting people lie about what the regiment is about. So it was just a sort of a natural thing. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this. Like I didn't have like a 5-year plan. It was like, it just came to me, and I was like, that's the next target. So I'm going to service that target, and then when the next one pops up, it'll pop up, and I'll go do it.
You said when you got to that ROTC, you're like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And then you made that decision, Well, I'm going to go SF. Did you know what you were getting yourself into when you made that decision to go SF?
I had no idea, man. I didn't know what SF was. We didn't, the only popular media about SF was the Green Berets, with John Wayne, which by the way is a horrible movie. I know I'll take some shit for that. That's a bad movie. It's a great piece of cultural iconography, but it's a bad movie. But that's what I knew. And then Rambo, like that was it, like that. So it was like a bad movie, one schlocky movie to another schlocky movie. I had no idea what SF was, no idea. Their books didn't exist. It wasn't discussed. It wasn't out there, and so I had no idea what I was getting into. But I knew that it was. It called to me. I knew that it was commando. I knew that these were unique men, and at its core they were men. I keep going back to that. Like, it was a rite of passage. All I knew is that it was fucking hard as hell, and they were going to test you, and if you passed, you got a piece of green felt to put on your head. And I was like, I'm fucking in, man. I don't know what it means, but I need to be tested, brother. I'm a man, and I want to be tested. I want to be stood up against a wall and tested. And I needed that. I needed that rite of passage, and I got it in spades, all along the way. Combat dive is a rite of passage. That one man comp, you're down there, you're fighting cadre and your demons. When you're at selection, even team week, everyone thinks team week is, it's team and it's everyone bonding together. Brother, you are lost in your head. When you're under that sand, man, and that thing is fucking compressing your spine, you don't hear anybody else. You don't hear the guy next to you going, "Come on, brother." All you hear is yourself going, You ain't it, brother. You ain't gonna make it. You pick it up. Let's go. You're letting these guys down. Let's go. It ain't getting any lighter. Let's go. Keep going. Get your shit together. Let's go. Get your shit together. And so, like, but in those moments of deep interpersonal reflection under the most extreme physical duress a human could possibly be under, except for maybe being waterboarded. Like, we're going to put this 1,000 pounds on your back and then put you in shifting sugar sand and then strap you to another dude, 3 other dudes, and they're going to be stumbling the whole way. Like, it doesn't get any worse than that. But that is the test of your mettle. That's like, we're going to make this so fucking hard that you have to be unwilling to lose. It's not that you have to be willing to win. Everyone likes to win, but Green Berets hate to fucking lose. And if I drop this apparatus, if I quit, then I lose, and I refuse to be a fucking loser. So I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna one more step. And there was a guy on my team. His name is Lee. Lee was on my team in selection. Short little guy. He's about, I'll say he was 5'2", just because I hope he hears this and it pisses him off. He was probably 5'7". Short little guy though, and he was in front of me on the on the Sandman apparatus, and I could see, every time we took a step, I'm 6 foot, so the apparatus is up at an angle. Every time we take a step, it's just driving him into the ground, and I can see him getting shorter with every step. And we would stop and take a break, and he would turn to me and he'd just look at me and be like, "Fuck," and I was like, "Fuck." And I remember at one point he said to me, we were pretty close to our breaking point. Of course, you're pretty close the whole time. And he said to me, "We can quit tomorrow." And I was like, "Fuck yeah, brother, we'll quit tomorrow." Absolutely. And of course, tomorrow comes, and we can quit tomorrow. And that always stuck with me. And it turns out that Lee was my Delta on my first team. I showed up to my team, and there's Lee, my first Delta, and I was like, "We can quit tomorrow." So I didn't know that I didn't know what being a commando meant. I don't think anybody really knows. Back then, you didn't have any understanding of it. But I knew that I was gonna get to test my mettle. I knew that I was gonna get to do these incredibly hard things that only the best got to do. You had to really earn the opportunity to put that knife in your mouth and dive into the body of water. And I was like, that's all I want to do, man. That's 7-year-old me is screaming. That's all I want to do. And no small amount of luck. You got to have a little bit of luck to get there. I got lucky, but I was also physically fit, and I listened to my NCOs, and I was, I performed when it counted, and I got a chance to, and what you do is every time you pass one of these little gates, every time you make your ruck run times, you earn the privilege of going out and doing land nav for 5 days and having blisters the entire size of your foot. And if you do that fast enough and find enough points, you earn the privilege of getting your shit kicked in team week. And every day that you pass that little gate, that you carry that thing fast enough, you get another day of getting your shit kicked in. So it's like those little victories, are they victories, or are you just a masochist? so once you put enough of those together, you get to go to the Q course. Then the Q course, what happens there? More challenges, the rucksacks get heavier. No one believes that when you say, hey, listen, at selection, that's the lightest your ruck is ever going to be. That's 70 pounds. That's as light as it gets, bro. You go to Robin Sage, I had the lightest ruck on my team, and it was 113 pounds. That's the lightest ruck, 113 pounds. Now you only carry that for 24 hours, but like it's hard. And then you're like, your cadre are telling you, the cadre are telling you when you get to your ODA, the rucks get heavy, and you're like, bullshit, man. That thing was 113 pounds. No way. Then you get to your team and it's 130 pounds, and you're like, fucking hell, man. When does this end? But like every one of those challenges, like you got to earn the privilege of carrying that 130-pound ruck because you carried the 113-pound ruck, because you carried the 70-pound ruck, because you were ruck running fast enough. Like you got to earn that all on the way. So in your mind, it's not punishment. In your mind, it's a reward. So you're just seeking more rewards. That's human nature. You know what I mean? Like, what's the next challenge? What's the most hardest thing I could possibly do? That's what I'm doing next. So, and you just keep going. You keep going. And by the way, every time you do one of those really hard things, you get like a little bobbin, you get a little badge, you get a little ribbon, you get a little hat. Like, ooh, like you're in your little merit rewards,
Everybody else got to do all that. I'm not to brag, but I was the unit master driver. So, kind of
whoa,
fucking cool guy over here.
Well, you got it. You got it. You went to selection, and you felt the sting of defeat.
I did.
You felt the sting of defeat, and you were like, I don't like that. Like, and you to my point earlier, yeah, you like to win, but you probably fucking hate to lose. So you're like, I'm going back.
I knew I was going to get my beret when I failed. Like I was like, I'm never going to let this ever happen ever again.
Yeah.
And there was not even. And so I had that set up, and I just realized this recently when I started talking about it, is I had that setback right away. So I didn't even notice it was a setback because I started over back at 0, but I had already started and then stopped and gone back and started over again. But when I got to selection, I knew I was going to pass. When I sat down with the cadre, I knew what he was going to say. I knew he was going to give me my thing. When I got out of there, and every course, and it sounds cheesy, but you only know if you know what I'm talking about. It's not the stupid saying like failure wasn't an option. It didn't fucking exist. Like you just went to complete the course. Like I showed up to IUW or fucking the Charlie course or whatever the fuck we were doing. I was just there with my buddies, and we were just doing the job,
just doing
to the next thing.
You're going to put this challenge in front of me, and I'm going to complete the challenge. Let's go. What's the next challenge? Yeah. What's next?
And if you're not going to quit, you're not going to self-select your way out. They're going to teach you what you need to know to pass the test. It's not like it's a fucking hidden mystery that they tell you everything you need to know. Do you have to have the ability to not freak out in the dark when a spider gets on your face? Probably. You're going to have to learn that one on your own. But just to take what they tell you and put it into application, do that. And then just don't quit, and you'll probably be okay. It's a fucking terrible thing, though. But like,
well, so that's sort of one of the things that gets me, though, is one of the things that really drives me crazy when guys go, I know Ranger School wasn't that hard, or selection wasn't that hard, and it's like, hey, motherfucker,
well, yes,
it was.
Yeah, it was.
Like it was hard as fuck. And I know it was hard because I've walked with hundreds of SFAS classes. And I've seen guys in full blown crying, like in pain, in misery, in despair. And you'll see that guy under the Sandman crying. And then 3 days later, you'll see him had just gotten selected, and he'll be like, "Yeah, it wasn't that hard." I'll be like, "Brother, yes, it was. Like, it's designed to be hard. Don't minimize it." But I think we do that because um, I think we don't want to like sort of uh, we don't want to brag about it. Like, we don't want to be braggadocious and be like, "Oh, it was yeah, it was really hard, and I did it because I'm a badass." It's like, yeah, it wasn't that hard because that's just what you do. Like, it's not a thing. It's just something that you do.
Well, yeah, E7 at my unit. There was a fucking small group of dudes that had to go to the E6 board to get their E6 when I was at group, right? And it was only a couple of us, like, and then they did away with it. It was just an automatic promotion after that. So I had to go to the board, and fucking Private Ward was a board baby. I was fucking good at it. So I just went in there and did my normal thing. And he's like, that was perfect, except one thing. And he goes, don't bring up how well you did in the course. We all did the course. Like, and from then on, it kind of minimized, like, until I got out, the success of the course, because you're around Green Berets and
Yeah,
nobody gives a fuck.
everyone's
And
successful.
everyone's successful. Everybody's a badass. And I was like, I'm just trying to go to this board. And he's like, you're going to be they don't even know how to hold a board. Like, that's an exaggeration. The sergeant majors know how to hold a board, but they're like, fuck, just answer their questions, you'll be fine. And since then, and there's other ways in group that's embodied, is you're kind of just a normal guy. And so that seeps into your personality of, well, I can't really say it was hard because they wouldn't say it was hard. So you're diminishing other's accomplishments. Instead, we
Yeah,
should be like, yeah, it was fucking hard. It was fucking gay. It's hard to stop drinking. It's hard to fucking deal with your family problems, or that you're
yeah.
injured and all this other stuff. That stuff's hard. Instead, we
And
do that.
and
We kind of
and
throw everything
hey, brother,
away.
but hey, man, you just hit the nail on the head. What you have just described is why so many operators struggle when they retire, when they leave the regiment, retire, get out, whatever, because we have spent so long minimizing the immensity of our accomplishments, and they are fucking immense, man. It is hard to get selected. It is hard to get through the queue. Like, those are really, really immense accomplishments, but because we minimize them, because that's just our nature. Like, no one wants to brag themselves up a little bit. uh, then you get out and you have convinced yourself that you've never done anything hard, because everyone that around you has done exactly the same stuff. So it's like, well, that's not hard. I'm not special. I didn't do anything unique. Everybody around me, all the team guys, they all did the same shit I did. So you end up convincing yourself that you're not all that. The reality of it is, like, you're a fucking walking strategic asset. Like, you have proven yourself in the most demanding environments possible. Like, it's okay not to brag about it, but at least recognize it so you can do something else. Like, you might, if you would stop doubting yourself, you might be able to go off and like get an advanced degree, like a doctorate, or you might be able to start a podcast and like 5 years ago, you're like, yeah, I'll be a podcast host, and before you know it, I'll have 30 podcasts in the can. Like, that wasn't even a thing now, but now you're like, yeah, 30 podcasts. Yeah, it's easy. I did it.
Yeah, fuck. I think you're in my 40s now for my episodes. I got a
Shit.
huge reserve in case fucking something happens.
You're in there,
That's what I
man.
tell.
But like that, that's no small accomplishment. You shouldn't diminish that. And so I think that for a lot of us, when we retire, we struggle with that. And a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys struggle with that transition because they've spent so long self-diminishing, because they don't want to be seen as thinking of themselves as better than others.
Because there's no time to be excited about anything, and two, uh, why get excited? There's somebody else has done it. Somebody else, in this one thing, right? Somebody's always going to be smarter than you, faster than you, stronger than you, be a better shot than you, have more shit on their uniform, be sergeant major's going to like them more, or they're going to have a better NCOR, or all this other shit. So, it's this comparison fucking killer that we all
See for
have.
joy.
So you don't appreciate your accomplishments, and like I said, there's no time to be excited because you got to go off and do other shit. Like now, I put out a reel or an episode, and I just see how well it's doing. It's like, fuck, this is awesome. Like, look
Yeah.
at this. This is fun. Look at, I created this out of
I
nothing.
created this. I birthed this thing, and
Out of
look what it's doing.
fucking nothing.
It's
Like
out
people
there.
like it. People think it's funny. And then at group, that's not a thing. That's, you got other shit to do.
Yeah. I had that moment just this last weekend. So one of the things I do is I host land navigation training. I call them musters, land navigation musters. I train guys in how to do land nav. And so, guys come out and they attend my training, and they'll come up to me with a copy of one of my books, and they're like, "Hey," and they'll sort of be like kind of shy about it, like, "Hey, would you mind signing this?" And I always think to myself, if somebody ever comes up to me and asks me to sign one of my own books and I say no, fucking shoot me in the head. That is the coolest fucking thing ever. You want me, you bought this thing that I vomited out of my head onto paper. You think it's so good that you brought it back to me and you're asking me to sign my name to it? Are you fucking kidding me? If I ever don't do that, oh my God, take me out to pasture. That is the coolest thing ever. And so like you put a reel out and it gets a couple likes, and it's weird because you'll put a reel out, and I have a small social media following. I think I'm like 5,500 followers, and I'll get a good post of mine will get 500, 600 likes, something like that. And I compare that to the big accounts, and they're getting 25,000 likes, and so if you were to compare yourself to that, you'd be like, I'm a nobody, but there are 500 people in the world that liked the thing that I just put out. Like, if you were to stand in a room of 500 people, you'd be like, there's a lot of motherfuckers in here. And if they all like what I'm doing, I must be doing something right. So it changes your perspective. So, when I see my book sales, you track your book sales. And I think to myself, every time I sell a book, that's a dude who's saying, I trust that guy enough to at least read what he's talking about. Like, man, that's a compliment that you can't even fathom. And then, when somebody leaves a review or I get messages all the time. Hey man, love the book. I had a question about it. Would you mind answering this question? I'm like, are you kidding me? You asking me to answer a question? I'll wear your ass out with the answer. Like, ask away, brother. You trust me enough to ask my opinion about something? 100%. So that's incredibly satisfying. I wish I could give that to guys that retired to do something else. And I have a lot, we got buds that have served and gotten out, and they're doing non-Green Beret things. They're like, I got a buddy who went off to be a dentist. Like, that's as non-Green Beret as it gets. I got a guy that makes custom bicycle wheels. Like, that's non-Green Beret. Like, you can do whatever it is you want when you get out. But like that's the point. You can do whatever you want. You were able to go through the hardest trials out there. You had the most difficult rite of passage imaginable. You can do whatever you want. You want to be a dentist, brother? You could do that on a breath hold. That's easy. And I wish guys would realize that, so they wouldn't beat themselves up so much in that transition process. I struggled a very little bit. Again, I was very lucky. I had a sergeant major that when I was getting ready to retire, and my plan was to work in uniform till Friday, retire on Friday at 5 p.m. and then show up on Monday morning as a government employee, like no transition. And he told me, pulled me aside one day and said, "Hey man, I want you to take some time off. I want you to take like a couple of months. You've got the terminal leave. Take that time off. Don't worry about double dipping. You're going to be fine with the money. Don't worry about that. Take time off and just go do nothing." And I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means. He's like, you're gonna figure it out. Go work in your yard. And so I was like, I don't know. Like, I've made my entire career listening to smart NCOs. I'm not going to stop now. So I took 3 months off that summer, right, when I retired. And I just worked in my backyard. I built brick planters. I built a brick fireplace. I built a deck. Like, I did stuff that was absolutely nothing with being a Green Beret or my next career, which is being an academic. I literally just was in the backyard barefoot, hammering stuff and slopping mud and building bricks. And God Almighty, if he wasn't right, because in those 3 months, I learned you could do whatever you want. Like I was like, I don't know how to build shit with bricks. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm out there pouring foundations and building brick, and that shit, 15 years later is still out there. It still looks great. And it's like you as a Green Beret, you can do anything because that's what Green Berets do. Green Berets do anything. You're gonna go somewhere and you're gonna figure shit out. Like that is what we do. You're gonna deploy somewhere. You're gonna go to some valley in Ashkrakistan, and the commander's gonna turn to you and go, "That's your valley. Fucking figure it out." And you're like, "Figure what out?" And he's like, "Yes, you're gonna fucking figure it out." That's like in the Q course. They're like, "Do this task, figure it out," and you're like, okay, selection, here's your task, figure it out. Okay, so that's who we are, is we're figure it out guys. And that doesn't stop when you go to the next thing. When you take the beret off, that doesn't stop. You can figure out how to get a doctor, you can figure out how to start a podcast, you can figure out how to become a dentist. I wish guys realized that earlier on. I think there'd be much less trepidation and much less anxiety about that.
Oh yeah, you gotta just fucking do it. We're on our deathbeds. I've said on the show before, we're whether you want to admit it to yourself or not, you are on your deathbed, no matter what age you are, and it's going to be a lot better to look back and say, "I'm glad I did that," than to be tortured by the fact that you can't do anything about it anymore. No, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have done that. Well, fucking try at least. Try and do it. Record a show. Fucking go sell flowers at the market or. So many interesting guests that I've just go off or just fade off and do your thing, fade off into the woods and be a mountain man and live away from people because you don't want to be around people anymore. That's fine too. You did everything your country asked you to do.
But Nick, that's the norm though. Like that's what's so cool about this podcast. I think that's what separates lesser known operators. I mean, it's in the fucking title. None of us are rock stars. None of us are like marquee names. None of us have medals of honor. What we are is we're just operators. We're less. Nobody knows about us, but like that's the norm. That's what everyone should be thinking is the norm. Not no one like if you're thinking that you're gonna if 7-year-old you thinks that you're gonna earn the Medal of Honor, you're gonna be really disappointed at 70. You need to understand that like just operating is fucking badass, and that's a worthy life. Like it is totally not just okay, like it's normal that you're going to go off, you're going to do the Q course, you're going to do selection, you're going to do the Q course, you're going to do your team time. Like you're just going to like they're going to keep stacking up challenges and you're going to keep knocking them down. And no one may ever know your name. That's normal and that's worthy. Like that is a life of purpose. Like that's it right there. Like you can't forget that. And so I look back in my career, I don't see any moment where that is at all noteworthy. I didn't set any records. I didn't win the Medal of Honor. I don't even I don't even have a silver star. What kind of a shitbag am I? Right. But like that, you still added value to the organization, and you can keep adding value to society, to your community, to your fucking family. You can still do that without being a CEO or a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist with a podcast or a New York Times bestseller. Like you can still just like do cool shit and like do what you want. And if you're articulate and professional and adaptable, like you can still be immensely useful to society.
Fuck yeah. Clarify one thing though. If you're listening at home and you do have a Medal of Honor, I would love to have you on my show. It's just you're lesser known to someone. I would.
I can't even fathom that, man. I've met a couple Medal of Honor winners, and to a man, they are the most humble. Man, they deserve it all. I met Roger Donlin a couple times, and Colonel Donlin earned his Medal of Honor in Vietnam, and he would come speak to us when I was out in Leavenworth at ILE, and he would come up, and it was all the soft guys in the room, and he'd come in, and it's just mild mannered, quiet, God fearing man, just humble as could be, and he would literally pass his Medal of Honor around the room, like not like in like a Lexan case, like just the met, like here it is, just here it is, and you're holding this thing like holy shit, man! Like this is fucking history. This is legend right here. And I'm just holding it, and I'm talking to the guy that earned it, and he's talking about the firefight that he earned it in, like it's just another day. Like you and I just went to the range, and he's like, and you're just like, oh my god, like man. And you, the if the only thing I ever do in my life is sit in that room and listen to Roger Donlin tell his story and get to hold his medal, that's a good life, man. Like that's okay. I'm okay with that. If I get to then don the same Green Beret that he does, holy shit, that is. If I get to stand and call that guy my brother, man Almighty, I've really lived it. So I hope that you get some Medal of Honor guys on here, and because I just love listening to those guys, man. They're just God Almighty. That is a satisfying experience to listen to those guys. They're just all so humble. And I can't imagine what I'd do if I met one and he was like a real prick. I'd be like, God, boy, that really took the wind out of my sails.
Well, people are people too. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never heard of any of the guys being anything less than just, I was just in the right place,
Right place, the right time.
wrong
Yeah.
place at the right time, wrong
Yeah.
place at the right time to do that. And people are starting to ask me, like, remember my family and stuff, what's your favorite episode? And I'll be like, well, and I go to say, I'm like, I don't really know. I mean, here's the best one, I think. But then, like, it's like whatever the mood. Like, I had a Gold Star spouse on, and that was just like a great experience on my end, talking to her about her experience. And she was so great.
Yeah.
And her husband was killed in Niger in 2017. And just the way she answered the questions, and just I learned so much in the way I was feeling during it. But then I listened to the other ones, like another guy, Alex, came on, no last name. We did a video one, but he wanted it just as something to show his kids like years from now, where they can watch and be like, this is what dad did, or show certain
Yeah.
family members. And I thought that was so fucking cool,
Yeah.
So that changed the way I did the show. I was like, I want to present something that you can just show your family down the road of, like, here's kind of some stuff about what I did, with a great conversation with another Green Beret or another special operations guy. And
Man,
then
it's
that's what I
storytelling.
want.
That's what you're doing. You're telling stories. Like let people tell their stories. Like there's something pure about that. Uh, that's why I love this long form. I hate the soundbite. I can't stand the soundbite media. I love a long form. Like let two dudes sit down. That's why podcasts are changing the world. It's changing the way we see people and the way we think about things, because you can sit down for a couple of hours and just shoot the shit, and like what comes out, we record it, and that there it is right there, raw, unedited, couple dudes cursing at each other. Like man, like that's because that's real life.
Yeah, it is, man. And it, like, everybody relaxes. I mean, I lead in. I'm to the point now where I sit down and I'm relaxed. Episode 1 through like 5 or 10, something like that. I'm pretty like, I gotta get what I'm gonna say. And now I just sit down. Let's go. It's just we're right in the team
Yeah.
room, just bullshitting and stuff. But
Yeah.
um, it's fun, and I like when everybody relaxes and we just start talking about, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And then you'll just see where the conversation goes. Was thinking, from the officer side, right? SF, you get your 18 months or 24 months, but it sounds like you kind of pushed it and kept yourself active. I wouldn't say active. I said engaged, instead of a
Yeah.
staff officer position, engaged. Did you push that? Because once you get off a team, you're kind of wanting to get it back.
Yeah, I get that question a lot. So first, I'll say that your worst day on staff as a Green Beret is better than your best day doing anything else as a non-Green Beret. Like it's staff time, but you're an SF guy and you're doing SF staff stuff, so it's a little different, right? So, but I stayed for lack of a better term operational, and I actually did more dangerous SF type stuff off of a team than I did on a team. After I left the team, I became a battalion OPSO, and then I did a year as chief of counter narco terrorism down in JTF Bravo down in South America. And that year, we what we would do is I had the helicopters, and we would deploy to a Central American country, and I would get their police or paramilitary forces and they had the forces with the jurisdiction, but they didn't have the transport. And so we would catch these drug planes that would fly out of Venezuela and Colombia, fly up over the Caribbean, and cut in across Honduras and Belize, and try to land in the jungle, these desert landing or these jungle landing strips, and then ferry the drugs off into the jungle real quick. And we knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what they were doing, but the host nation guys don't have helicopters. That's a capability too far beyond them. But they have the Jundies. They got the guys on the ground. So I had the helicopters. I needed guys. I had helicopters. They had guys. They needed helicopters. Let's go do this thing. And we'd load these guys up, and we would chase drug planes into the jungle that would crash land, and then we'd hover over them, jump out of the back of the helicopter, and catch these guys in the act. Like, that's like the craziest, coolest Green Beret shit you could imagine. And I wasn't on an A team when I was doing that. I just happened to be an SF guy. But like, that was getting shot at. Like, I was in way more danger in Latin America, I think, than I ever was in Iraq or Afghanistan. Like, and I was in some shit in Iraq and Afghanistan, but so none of that time was on a team. Like, that was all, staff time. Man, I did a ton of stuff post team time. So yeah, I did 2 years and 2 weeks of team time, and so I think normal is 18 months and 2 years.
So
I think
were on
maybe a little bit shorter now.
But were in command of an ODA. I did my team time and
went off and did Green Beret stuff. Like, I did not go to staff and just do PowerPoints.
No, I mean, it does. But you were in command of an ODA when 9/11 happened.
I was, yeah. I was forward deployed. I was just telling this story to guys in the office the other day. I was in Bolivia, in this little outpost at the foot of the Andean Ridge, which was like a major, literally the highway that they would take precursor chemicals into the mountains and jungles to make cocaine, and where they would bring it out as processed coca. And we were there for about 3.5 months. About midway through that tour, 9/11 happened, and so I'm a pre, mid, and post GWAT Green Beret. And you want to talk about weird, because when we deployed, we actually deployed on Comm Air, and we belly loaded our gear on a commercial aircraft. And it was the pre 9/11 TSA wasn't a thing. The security was a joke. It was like, you take whatever you wanted. And then coming back into country, this is, we were coming back in about 6 weeks after 9/11, and a whole new security apparatus. We literally had a Mexican standoff in the airport. I remember we came in through Miami, flew back commercial, flew in through Miami, and we had a bunch of my Echo had a bunch of ComSec in his assault pack that he was hand carrying. And this was, sensitive, classified equipment that if you weren't authorized to, you couldn't even look at it. If you're some rent-a-cop at the airport security, you don't get to open that bag and look at that ComSec equipment. You're not authorized to do that. So when we leave country, it's a free for all. We come back into country, everything's on lockdown. Everything's a shoe bomb. Everyone thinks everything's a terror threat. And my team and I are in the airport in Miami going through customs. And we got these rent-a-cops that want to look at they want to unzip all our bags and take it off. And to make matters worse, they'd done a swab test on our assault packs. And of course, they're full of demo. You know what I mean? So they didn't have any demo in them, but we'd been hauling demo to and from the range for 4 months. And so they all tested positive. And now we're having this fight. You cannot open this bag. You can x-ray it, but you can't open it. You can't look at it. Here's my courier orders, the whole 9 yards. And it went up to we were 3 hours in lockdown while they got, I don't know, the head of the customs department down in Miami. He finally came in. We had to make phone calls back to the group. Total nightmare, but we ended up winning that Mexican standoff. But very different, pre 9/11 Green Beret is what we're returning to now, and that's the glory days, man. We are in the golden era. These guys that are complaining about I don't get to kick in doors and do 10 raids a night, brother, you don't know what you're missing, man. Pre-GWAT Green Beret, you get to go into a country somewhere, and it is you and the team, and that's it. When you go split team, that's the QRF. Your ISR, you don't have a gunship overhead, you don't have an Apache QRF. There's no infantry uplift platoon as your backup. It's you and the boys. So you gotta be you have to have everything planned out to the nth degree. Your evasion plan of action. What are you going to do under duress? Like everything is planned out. And as the captain on an ODA, you're the senior motherfucker in that country. It's you and the mill group commander, and then that's it. Like that's it. So like you want to talk about autonomy, you want to talk about big boy rules, brother. You are entering the golden era. That you will. I remember. I listened. I heard somebody tell a story the other day that they were on an objective in Afghanistan, and their guys were doing shit. They were, doing a sensitive site exploitation after the fact, and the commander was watching them in from an ISR platform overhead, and he radioed down and told one of the guys to put his gloves on. And I was like, "What? Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're gonna go where you're gonna be in a country doing shit." Where there is no commander. You are the commander. There is no ISR. The ISR might be that little pocket drone that your 18 Echo has. The QRF is the other half of your ODA. Like your backup, you are the backup plan. Like that is what special forces it was designed to do. Alone and unafraid, force multiplying, decentralized operations, split team stuff. Like, man, if you are coming in through the pipeline now, that's what you're staring at on the other end. And brother, it is awesome. It's a good life. I got to live that on an ODA, and then because my first non-ODA assignment outside of SF was in Central America. This is in 2004, 2005 timeframe. Everyone's looking at Iraq and Afghanistan. No one gives a shit what's going on in the jungles of Latin America where I am. So it was like wild, wild west. You could do whatever the fuck you wanted because nobody, like, there was no oversight. It was a free for all. So I did get to do that for a good while. So my SF experience didn't end with the ODA. It started with the ODA. I was force multiplying and running guerrillas for years after that. And the same thing when I got to JSOC. I did the same sort of stuff, decentralized. No one's in your business. We trust you. You're empowered to go do this thing, and that's what I did. It was awesome.
Did you have to go to another selection?
I did. I went twice, and eye opening. And so I talk a lot about SFS. I don't talk about the other stuff because there's not a lot out there about it, and they want to keep that secretly on purpose.
I didn't ask a lot. I just asked.
No, yes or no I know you didn't. But I get that question a lot. Guys know that I had that life in the last questions, and I just say it's not SFAS. It's totally different. It's great if that's what you want to go do. You want to go do that mission, but you can have a very full career without doing that. And I got to do all the cool guy stuff. So I know what I'm talking about.
I had a cadre at IUW 2013. We did our terrain walk. And we went like southwest to the talk, and we walked down by a draw, and he was talking to us the whole time. And he goes, I've done every selection and every land nav course. He says, this is the hardest one when we're in the NTA. He said, this is the hardest one. It's similar to Hoffman, but it's not the same thing. This is the hardest night of land nav you're ever going to have in your whole life. Just pay attention and don't try and go through the draw if you don't think you can make it through. Just go around and you'll be fine. Stay out of the
draws, man.
He said, you'll be fine. Just go around. You'll have plenty of time. Yeah. Don't try and do more than you think you can, and you'll be fine. And I did exactly what he told me, and I was fine. It was horrible. I almost fucking killed myself with a heat cat. I remember I lost a whole hour trying to bring myself back to life by sipping all my water until I was able to get back up. But I got back with a few minutes to spare, 5 for 5, and I got out of there.
There you go, baby.
Do you is there still a difference between the two, or is there still two?
There's only one. It's out at Hoffman. It is the same one they've been doing it on for forever. They
don't do that IUW one anymore?
No, The one out of Hoffman, actually think that's probably one of the hardest land nav courses out there in existence, because the terrain is so flat, that it's really hard to navigate out there. You really got to you really have to have confidence and competence. You got to have some discipline, because there's like when you go to other courses where the terrain is really extreme. So I'll give you an example. I just want to talk about when I went to the Q course, the 18 Alphas went to we had an event called the Trek. It was also called the Troy Trek, but it was a long range solo land navigation out in the mountains of Pisgah. Extreme terrain. I mean, big mountains out there. Um, and while the movements were really hard because the terrain is so extreme, it's so steep and the mountain laurel is so thick, like the navigation was easy because you knew you're either on top of a mountain or on the bottom of a mountain. So like looking at the map was like, I know exactly where I am. It's very obvious by looking at the contour lines. Contrast that with Hoffman, where we do SFAS land nav, and it's flat. Like you'll have an entire grid square where there's one contour line. That's it. So like if you don't have your basic land navigation skills down, know how to dead reckon, understand pace count, understand your drift, understand the fundamentals of terrain association, like you're fucked, because that navigating out there is really hard. In contrast, though, the movements themselves are easy because the terrain is so flat. Unless you get down in one of those draws, the movements themselves aren't that hard. And that's what's getting guys now, is that guys that are showing up to selection now are not skilled in the fundamentals of land navigation. If you're an 18 X-ray and you go through 11 X-ray OSUT down at Fort Benning, like you may only do land nav 3 or 4 times. That's it. So like you show up at selection, like you don't have the fundamentals down. That's why guys are struggling. They've actually added an extra 4 days to selection. I don't know if you know that. They've added 4 days at the beginning of SFAS for non-assessed land navigation instruction, because guys are it's the number one failed event. 50% of the guys that go to land nav fail because they're just not skilled in it.
Not to brag.
Yeah.
But all I did, my only experience ever in my life with land nav prior to going out to the Star, was what they taught me at selection. Yeah. And I never missed a point from that point forward in the rest of my career. I assume it hasn't changed. Is it just
great
people's
instruction.
ability to take
it's
it
great
in?
Instruction, but you probably also got a fair amount of it in basic training. No. And AIT. Did you get any land nav in?
I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain I didn't have a basic training. I went and hung out for however many weeks, but I've only been smoked in my career twice, and they were both at selection. I don't think I've ever even been yelled at.
Yeah.
Really, it was just basic training was nothing. I went to Fort Sill for field artillery, and that was not basic training. We didn't fucking do anything. It was, the hardest thing we did was the PT test. So
the experience that guys are reporting now is that they don't, and I talk to guys that are drill sergeants down at Benning, and they confirm this and echo it often, is that they don't get enough land navigation training in basic. So it is so bad that they had to add the extra 4 days on the beginning of SFAS, and it's non-assessed time, and it's just land nav instruction, just to get guys up to a point where they can go be tested. And then you start selection, you do gate week, and then a land nav week where you get more instruction. They do it again. And it's great instruction, but if the first time you're seeing it is at SFAS, you're probably not going to do very well. You owe it to yourself to get schooled up beforehand. And that's really why I started my company, Tia Voodoo, was to do land navigation training. And it fills a void. I sell out every class. Guys come out, and I don't teach, like, I call it an advanced land navigation class, but there's nothing advanced about it. It's just basics. It's pace count. It's azimuth. It's telling time and learning how to read terrain. But I'll talk. I had a class a couple months ago, and I do a day class and a night class, and I had a group of guys infantry guys, and they had never been given a class on the compass. Like they didn't know what the parts of the compass called. They didn't know how to use the rotating bezel to line it up with the north-seeking arrow. I'm like, you guys are fucking infantry guys. Didn't you ever learn this? Like, no. We went through basic during COVID, and we just never. No one ever sat us down and taught us. And I'm like, holy shit, man! These are infantry guys. These guys are supposed to know that. So there's a real void of of technical knowledge, and that's not very technical either. There's a real void of that knowledge, and it's and so I'm filling that void. So selection has realized that about a year ago they started adding the 4 weeks. They did it as a pilot class for 3 classes last year, and now it's just a part of every class. But it is increasing the pass rate a little bit. I don't think as much as they expected it to, a couple percentage points, but you got to do something because we're going to keep failing guys, and we can't handle any more classes at 10% selection rate, which we had a class last year, almost a year ago. They had a 10% select rate. I mean, that's the kind of numbers you see at smooth selections.
That's insane. Like,
yeah,
we had a big class, 400. We're getting close to 500 or something. My second time through, it was the one after the summer break, and there was only 100 and some dudes out there when we left. I was amazed. I was like, where the fuck did everybody go? Like, fuck.
Yeah. We are so we historically 36%. It dipped over COVID. It dipped down into the 20s. And then we had the one class at 10%, and it's been slowly rising. I predicted a year ago. I said within 18 months we will be back up to the historical average, and we're about there. I think the last couple classes have been like 27, 29, and I think the last one was at 31%. So it is going back up. But land navigation still is the one that kills them. Guys are physically fit. There's great programs out there. SWIC publishes a great program. I have a program called Shut Up and Ruck that is an 8-month prep program. It leaves no stone unturned. There's a ton of guys that are they do prep programs. Great athletic coaches and all that business. So guys are pretty fit. That's all knowable. But not many guys teach land nav. I'm the only course that teaches it on a regular basis. There's another retired Green Beret that does it twice a year out in Pisgah, but it's not analogous to SFAS, and that's what caused me to write my third book, Never Get Lost, which is just a land nav manual, and that's like that's been doing very, very well. And guys are like, man, this is awesome. Like I've been in the Army 4 years. I never heard any of this stuff. I'm like, God Almighty, that's like basic shit that I just like wrote down on paper, and so it's a real problem.
It's great that the resources are out there, right? And when I say, okay, one of the things about the show to point out is there's a fucking billion different ways to get your beret. Everybody's going to take a different path. I came from a fucking S2 shop at a field artillery unit and did everything myself, figured it all out with, really no help or support from anybody because they didn't know any better. They didn't know how to help me. So I just did my own shit, and I fed off that. Like, I'm fucking figuring it out myself. And that was my way to get it done. That's not going to work for really anybody. That's going to work for people that just like me. But if you're like you and you have any inkling that you need any help in any area and you want to be a Green Beret, you're going to have to figure out how to fucking fix that by yourself. You're going to have to go, well, I need this person to come bring their knowledge and put it in my head and teach me what to do. You're going to have to figure that shit out yourself, because it's a very, as Kevin Edgerton said on his, right? It's a very rewarding career, but if you're not going to do the work, then I can't help you. Like, you're gonna have to
Kevin's a great example. Kevin runs 18 Alpha Fitness. He's a coach out in, he works out at AFSPEC War. So for those that don't know, a great episode, you should go listen to him. He's been preaching this shit for years. You follow one of Kevin's programs, you'll be physically fit, but you got to follow the fucking program. He's not going to lift the weights for you. I'm not going to make the rucks for you. I'm not going to plot the point for you. I'll give you the resources, but brother, you got to do it. The problem right now is not a lack of resources. Like, we know more now. There are more courses and books and programs out there for you to take. The problem is you got to be disciplined about it. I don't want you to be motivated. Everyone's fucking motivated. I want you to be disciplined. I'll tell you exactly what to do, but you got to do it. Like I'll tell you exactly what rucks to do this week, exactly where it runs, exactly how much weight, what the pace is, but you got to be fucking disciplined to do it. And I think we have a real problem with that with younger guys is they lack that discipline because they, like we talked earlier, they lack that male foundation, that male accountability. This is interesting. If I were to ask you what could a young high schooler do that would position him well to be a successful commando for whatever pathway he picks, and you'd probably say he needs to do team sports, particularly contact sports. He needs to do football, wrestling, and lacrosse. Because like that's where a coach grabs you by the face mask, tells you to stand over here and do this, and if you don't do it right, he's going to make you do a lap. If you're leaning too far forward on your front hand in the 3-point stance, he's going to slap your arm out of the way and he's going to dog you. And the three organized sports that are declining the most in participation in the United States are wrestling, tackle football, and lacrosse. Like the three things that we need the most. It's like, okay, so maybe that falls on fathers. 70% of young kids grow up in fatherless homes or something like that. Or maybe it's 40%, but like it's a shockingly large number. Okay, so then maybe the schools take over. Maybe we let the government raise our kids. Okay, schools are run by women. 84% of primary school teachers are women. Okay, so now where are these kids getting this male accountability? If you're a young kid and if you're a young boy and you act like a young boy, loud, energetic, constantly, you crave physical movement, you get punished as a little kid. They put you on Adderall if you do that. So like no wonder that we're having kids that are showing up to basic training that can't do land nav, or they can't be motivated, they can't be disciplined because they've been drugged to an inch of their life their whole life. They've been told that being energetic and loud and craving physical activity is bad. Like we're at a real crisis now. Like there's a war on boys, and that has led to a war on manhood. And what we spent the first hour talking about was rites of passage for men. And becoming a Green Beret is one of the ultimate rites of passage. But if that's the first thing that you do as your rite of passage, you're probably not going to do well. If you have not been challenged up until that point, like you're gonna fucking take it on the chin because it's as hard as it gets. And so I think if we bring some of that back, and listen, I'm not the only one saying this. We know this. There's a whole cottage industry of former special operators that run courses for men, like come to the sweat lodge and we'll smoke you up and I'll pay you 10 grand for that. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're going to pay someone 10 grand for that? It's so clearly there's this, we're quickly becoming a society of safe spaces or octagons. Like you either want to be in your safe space, your padded room where you have your coloring books, or you want to go watch MMA fights in the octagon. Like it's the two extremes. And like more and more men now are recognizing the value in the octagon, and they're running away from the safe spaces. And so we're at a tipping point right now that I think the next couple of years we're going to see guys running towards that. And we see that today in recruitment numbers for the military. I just saw a report yesterday that all 5 services, God help us, there's a 5th service now, Space Force, all 5 services were over. You don't count the Coast Guard. That's paramilitary. And the Air Force is barely military.
Just to clarify one thing, if you were Coast Guard Special Operations, I want to have you on my show.
MSRT guys are legit, man. Those MSRT guys are legit.
I'm trying to get one right now. So
I'll hook you up. I know a couple. The recruitment numbers for the first time in a long time, everyone met was 100% or more of their recruiting goals, which I predicted about 4 or 5 months ago. I said you're gonna see a surge because I think guys they're craving that, man. They want to test their mettle, and so special operations is in a great position. The only problem is that the availability of candidates is shrinking. In 2018, 70% of Americans were ineligible for military service. They were either too fat, too dumb, or too sick, and or too lawless. They had criminal records because they grew up in households without strong role models to hold them accountable. So in 2018, it was 70%. By 2022, it was up to 77%. It grew 7% in 4 years. So it's like, man, that was in 22. What is it now? So we have this ever decreasing population, and MHS Genesis, which is the medical system that the recruiters in the military uses, they catch everything back to your entire history. So if you were a young kid and your parents put you on Adderall, which they probably did because their teachers told them to, because their teachers wanted you to behave the opposite of what young boys like to behave at, then you are likely ineligible for service. Now the services have recognized the folly in that, and they've altered their requirements there. But brother, we are quickly running out of quality candidates to put into the system, and all of us are competing for the same guys. We're competing for the same guys that the PJs are, and that's the same guys that the EMS services are fighting for, and there's not a ton of us around.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool shit to do, and you got these kids who gonna pick the shiniest one.
Yeah.
I kind of got pigeonholed, and then I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm gonna do that. That's the hardest thing I can get my hands on. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit, right? You said wrestling, obviously the greatest high school sport you can have, with
100%.
the highest chance of return, because you have a higher chance of hurting yourself for the rest of your life in football.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit lower in wrestling. So the greatest return on investment is going to be wrestling. And like 1A of that is getting alcohol and getting wasted with your friends out in the cornfield. Because I heard kids aren't doing that anymore, because that translates into, when I got into the course, that's all we fucking did was we show up, pass a school, and then we would all go get so fucking wasted that we didn't remember what we were doing, and then we would show up to the next school.
So you're making a light of it, and I 100% agree with you. But what you have just described is building community.
It's you're letting off steam. It's there's a social aspect of
you're
it.
out with the boys. You're building community. You have an outlet. You're dealing with your emotions, and you're learning who you are. One of the things, this is a controversial take, but I have two kids. My son is a pilot in the Army, and my daughter is a teacher. And before I sent them off to college, my wife and I made them get drunk with us. We in the home, before we sent them off, and like we took their phones away, and we locked ourselves in the house. So it was a safe environment, and we enjoyed beverages together. And here's what this tastes like. Here's what this tastes like, because I wanted them to know what it felt like to get drunk. I wanted them to know like when they were losing control. And so, because I knew that they were going to go off to college or go off into the world, and you're going to go drinking. And they grew up in a private Christian school, very sheltered, and I felt like they got a phenomenal classical education, but didn't have the same social structure that I enjoyed, for example. And I said, I want to put them in a position to be well adapted for college life, and you're going to drink in college. And so we got drunk with them, and they both cite like that was like a moment that like I remembered, like I know that what my tipping point is. I know how to control that. I know what losing control feels like, and that's a skill that served them well. So if these young kids that are growing up, they don't get knocked around by their coach, they don't get knocked around by their peers, they don't get cauliflower ear, and they don't go into the field and get drunk. Like they're losing those are key learning moments, and if you don't have those, like you're not equipped to be an adult. Like every kid in for all of history did that shit, and if we don't let them do that shit, they're losing that growth opportunity. So like, what are we doing here? I'm not. Let's be clear. I'm not advocating getting your kids drunk.
No,
but if you do,
but it's the same in the course, right? The whole course is building us up and presenting us with these situations so that down the road we're going to react better to it. Those cadre at selection are up like 24 hours a day for like 3 days at a time. Well, they're fucking Green Berets. They gotta be, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's down the road. Candidate, you take your sleep, you fucking, it's going to get worse from here, and it gets worse and worse, but you're able to put up with it. And then finally, when you're downrange or something like that, your team's going to be able to depend on you. Well, if you don't have anything to get you ready to that point, to even get to the entry level point, when stuff starts to get stressful, and you have that ability to pull the fucking eject lever and get yourself out of there, you're going to do that.
The literature on this is abundantly clear. You learn to do hard things by doing hard things. When you do hard things, your body literally releases a protein into your system that builds resilience. You only get that if you do hard things. So you learn to do hard things by doing hard things. So the pipelines, the respective pipelines for us, selection and the queue and all that, like they are training you, but they're also making you do hard shit so that when you get to a team, you are more capable than other people because you have done a bunch of really hard shit. So you both have the competence to do hard things and the confidence. Like, you have done hard shit before, so you know this other hard shit is going to be less hard. That's what being a Green Beret is really about. Like, there's a, like, my answer to everything is yes, because whatever it is, I'll fucking figure it out, because I have figured shit out in the past. Whatever it is, I'll figure it out. The commander he looks at that valley and you ask Krakistan and says, figure it out. I'm like, you got it. I don't care what it is. I'm going to figure it out, because that's what I do. That's all I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I make the joke that Nicholas Allen's the host of the show, but my full name, or Nick Ward, that's like, I'm the owner or whatever, right? I'm the real
Right.
life person. And if somebody invites me to go, like, do something like run anything running, right? I'm like, me, fuck that. But Nicholas Allen, the host of Lesser Known Operators, might be invested in that. Let's go out and let's do that shit. So there's
Fake
part
it
of me,
till you
yeah,
make it.
you got to say yes to everything. You don't have
Yeah.
you're rarely in life are you going to be in a position to turn stuff down, to say, no, I just have too much on my plate, where you take it all on, be able to now recognize when you're taking too much on and things like that. That's a good problem to have sometimes. So you have too much opportunity and you need to pull
Yeah.
things back. But, to pick and choose where you go, because that's, the best advice I got in my military career was from these specialists at my first unit. And they're like, you don't want to stand out here. I was like, why? Fuck, that's terrible advice. Of course I do. Like, first of all, I want to get the fuck out of here because this place sucks. And you do want to stand. I got so many opportunities from just saying, yeah, I'll do that. Hey, we need somebody for a board today. Yeah, I'll do that. I didn't fucking know what I was doing at the time, but I fucking went and I won. And doing these stupid things in the military, right, at your regular Army unit or whatever that you think are meaningless, command let me do whatever the fuck I wanted to do and get ready for
Yeah.
selection. They'd let me, because I kept winning boards. I was an excellent soldier. They're like, yeah, fuck,
Yeah.
you can do whatever you want. As long as I didn't get in trouble, and I could go ruck whenever I wanted. I could go to CrossFit at lunch and train to get ready for the course, because I had no training plan. So I had to fucking make it up. So
Yeah. Yeah. I was the
all
same
these
way.
accepting all these opportunities that come up and then just fucking figuring it out will get you way farther than fucking
Yeah, absolutely.
sifting
I don't.
through and
I
picking
say
and
don't say no.
choosing.
Just say maybe, and then maybe hear about. But, like, don't turn down schools. Don't turn down opportunities. Don't turn down missions. Like, just go for it. You'll never know what you're gonna get out of it. That's been my philosophy my whole life. And we are of the generation. Although I'm a little younger than you, very little. The the way that you got to SF was by being really good at being a conventional guy. You didn't get to break the rules until you showed that you were a a a uh, a disciplined observer of the rules. Like, you had to be a good soldier. You had to prove that you were a high performer, and then you got the opportunity to go to selection. So that's one of the issues. That's one of the challenges with the 18 X-ray program is that because you're coming right in off the street, like, you haven't really had to prove anything, and OSUT is turning out to be less of a challenge than we thought. And this is interesting. I just published an article about this, or a post on Reddit. I get reports from guys that are coming up through the pipelines, and when I get enough data, I'll make a couple observations. And the number of guys that get 18 X-ray contracts that actually keep that contract through Fort Benning, like through OSUT, is less than 50%. Half of the guys that are signing contracts can't keep them through OSUT. Like they're not physically fit enough. And so you have to take a PT test in OSUT that determines whether or not you keep your contract. And it's not that hard. It's like the standards are like 80 points in each event. And these kids can't keep the contract. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? That's insane. So now extrapolate that math out. And it's somewhere along the order of the amount of guys that sign a contract that end up earning their beret. It's like 5%. 5%, man. That's incredibly low. And that's of all the pipelines, that's the highest attrition rate. The SEALs are about 90%. Rangers are at 92%. PJs and Aspect War are anywhere between 85 and 95%, and we're at 95%. So we have the highest attrition rate, and it's like, whoa, man, like what's going on over here? But over half of those guys are failing in basic training. They can't even keep the contract. What is that? How does that make you feel?
I feel like we're having a veiled discussion about the downfall of America.
It's the downfall of society.
Society,
It's the feminization of society, man.
Well, you got to be sensitive. You got to be sensitive, but you need to be tough. And is that coming to an end? It depends on where you go in parts of the country, right? There's different parts of the United States that aren't even similar one bit. Like you get out, you're in a city that's not the same as 50 miles away in the same state in the country. Those are different people. Those aren't the same people. I think the military has done an excellent job of alienating the population of America that would enlist for the sake of the people that wouldn't enlist.
Yeah.
And I think they're starting to realize that, obviously, with some numbers and things like that. You got to know your audience. You see that in business, right? If this were for profit, it would happen a lot faster. They'd have to make changes because they have a board to answer to. But leadership changes in the government every 4 years or every 2 years, really, and with who's got funding and things like that. So yeah, if it sounds like we're talking about selection here, but those are some interesting numbers.
We're talking about society, though, and it goes back to my original point about safe spaces and octagons. There's this growing divide, and the guys that can survive in the octagon, whether it's the actual octagon, guys that can fight, or guys that can be beat up, like we're a dying breed, and eventually we're going to win, though, because war is the natural state of man. And so way better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And so like we're building warriors. And so we're going to be able to adapt to any of those situations. I fear that I did fear that we were, and I think we still are, the Overton window has moved. And it is seen as, being masculine is often seen as being obscene. It's it's not desirable, that toxic masculinity, and I think we're seeing a resurgence of masculinity, of guys willing to say, no, it's not only is it okay to be masculine, you need it. Like society will fail to function. Someone needs to build the fucking bridges. Like fine, we can paint them flowers, but somebody's got to build the fucking bridges. So we are the bridge builders. Someone's got to defend society. Somebody has to be pulling security. Somebody has to be willing to do the hard labor. And that someone that does that stuff is men. I'm not saying women can't do it. Nobody has studied women in special forces more than I have. I've done extensive studies on it, but that's not the norm. The norm is manly men doing brutish things, getting extremely violent, and fighting society's wars, because that's the default state of man. That's humankind. Peace is the anomaly. War is the state. Now, you don't have to be a warmonger, but you better be prepared. And Green Berets are the guys that are prepared to fight wars. but Green Berets, what are Green Berets known for? Is being warrior diplomats, right? So I had I remember I was a young captain, and I was at a school prior to taking my team, and they linked all us Green Berets up with a battalion commander, a sitting SF battalion commander, and somebody asked him, "Hey, what does the ultimate Green Beret look like to you? Like what is success?" And he said, I want a guy that can shake someone's hand with one hand, maybe hand him a stack of cash, but behind him he's got a pistol, and he's willing and able at any moment to pull that weapon out and shoot that guy. So that's the warrior diplomat. Like, and I was like, oh, that's kind of badass. That's like that encapsulates it. Like, you have to be willing and able to be smart and efficacious and pleasant, but at the same the moment it needs it, you got to be able to pull that trigger. And that sort of describes what Green Berets do. You know what I mean? Like, that's the G chief. That is the area command meeting where you're meeting the G chief, and you're leery of him, and you're like, okay, how am I going to play this guy out? And you're going to trust him only so far as you can trust him, and then, but if you have to, you'll turn to 60 on him, and you'll go to town. And if you are not able to think in those terms, you're not able to think in those extremes, and you're not going to be successful in the next iteration of our current society. And in order to do that, you got to be a man, or you certainly have to think like a man. So the females that are successful in male dominated societies, in executive suites, in the military, they do not exhibit typical female behaviors. They are atypically female. They all exhibit male behaviors. That's because that's what it takes to thrive in those environments. So in a competitive peer-to-peer competition, strategic competition world, like, it's going to take dudes that are being a little bit brutal, guys that are willing to have their face mask grabbed and dragged around, guys that are willing to have cauliflower ear, and guys that are willing to go into the field and drink beers with the boys. Like that, those are male character traits that you need to be successful. You also need female characters that are loving and empathetic and caring, but only in so much as they are balanced by typical male characteristics. That's why traditional gender roles work. That's why traditional marriages work, because they occupy those traditional roles, and that's how things thrive. So the counter argument to that is, well, I know two families that have two dads and families that have two moms. And it's like, yeah, I'm not saying that won't work, but all things being equal, a mom and a dad are best for raising a family, because they bring into the family those character traits. Like, that's not a controversial statement. That's like the most logical of logical statements. Why is that true in a family structure, but why does that then go away in a as we take that to the next level in an organization, in a government, in a society? Like, you need both. If it's all loving, caring, empathetic, no one's going to build the fucking bridges, and we need bridges.
So yeah, family structure can be two male, two female, male, female. And even if it is any one of those combinations, one of them has to fill the role of one, and one of them has to fill the role of the other. It doesn't matter what sex they are.
Yeah, it's the roles.
It's the roles, which is completely different. And you're going to have to learn how to do things from both your moms or both your dads, or your mom and your dad.
But one of them is going to be the male role model. One of them is going to be the female, regardless of the sex.
One thing I wanted to clarify is, we're not talking about the force. So, as you said, the standards are being upheld. They're not lowering the standard or anything.
Yeah.
They are sometimes taking a catastrophic loss by taking 10% selection rate, which sounds pretty bad, because that's 3 selections there if you get a worth of people. The people that are making it are upholding the standard, and we're turning out the Green Berets that we always have, correct?
Yep. Yep.
It's our
Yeah. So
pool to
yeah, we
pull
have
from.
not lowered the standards. If anything, the selection is harder now. The way it was restructured in the mid 2010s, I think it's harder now than it ever was. And so the standards are not lowered. The quality of the Green Berets coming out of the Q course now is just as good as it's always been. They may be different people, but they are just the same Green Berets. So
You said that. So we're at IUW, and this cadre was like going off on us, yelling at us about. He goes, "You guys don't even know how fucking easy you got it. You know, the course is way easier now." And this other cadre goes, "Shut the fuck up, dude. It's harder now." He goes, "It's harder now." He goes, "Oh fuck, sorry guys." It's like, what?
yeah,
What?
it's absolutely harder. And so like I complain about the 10% selection class and the dipping numbers, but I'm not advocating for changing the changing the way we do it. It'll all work out. It'll all work out in the end. It'll be tough for a couple years, but I here's the other thing though is that I trust the guys that are running it. The cadre, the leadership that is running selection, that is running SWIC, that is running the regiment. I trust them. They are the products of the exact same system that I am. I am no smarter or better than them. I have a different perspective, but I 100% trust them to get it right. And they are busting their ass. They are doing everything they can to get it right. There's a lot of shit they don't control. They serve many masters. The information environment is as challenging as it gets now, and they have to deal with the realities of the force that's given to them. So I trust them immensely. We'll have a couple of off years, but like you said, it comes and goes, comes in waves. It's coming back around. It's a pendulum. It's swinging. And I hope to God they don't change the standards. I hope they keep upholding it because that's the only way we're going to win this thing. So I do trust them. I want to make that clear. I'm allowed to be a critic of them just the way that they're allowed to be a critic of me. But ultimately, I do trust I trust the process.
Yeah, I can have my opinions. You can have your opinions. They can have theirs. They're in command. They're going to make the decisions, and I like to believe that they'll make the decisions that every the correct ones, right? That we would
Yeah,
all like
they'll get there.
generally agree is the right way forward for things. And if not, then I got to rethink my life about how I think of things and things like that. And
But I talk to these guys. I talk to senior leaders all the time. I have a meeting tomorrow with a senior leader at SWIC, and it's they're not dumb. They know it. They know the challenges. They're balancing many competing priorities. They're looking at how to reorganize things and make efficiencies and all that. They know the challenges. They are not going to lead us astray. Again, they are us. They're just younger versions of us, and they happen to be in command. They're not going to fuck it up. I trust them immensely.
I think we beat that one to death. So back to your career.
Yeah,
So you kind of, how much, because when you say staff, one thing you brought up earlier, and you said something we did in the 18 Alpha course. Until you said that right there, it clicked for me that I never asked any of the 18 Alphas what the fuck they did in the 18 Alpha course, like at all. I said, I don't even know what they fucking did. I know we had a guy get dropped for putting some Quizlet answers up online, pulled out a Robin
shit.
Sage. We never saw that motherfucker again. But I never
I
asked
tell you what we
any of.
did, brother. We planned our asses off. We went through every iteration of mission planning you can imagine. Go into old school. Now I'm talking old school planning, the ISOFAC, where you would do a 96-hour deep dive mission planning. You do you get the mission, you do the mission analysis, break it all down, all the MDMP. You do the back briefs and then the brief backs and then the rehearsals. Like I think by the time I showed up at Sage, we had done 12 or 13 full mission profile planning exercises. You are a planning motherfucker. And because that's what separates the Green Beret from the other soft forces is that we are expert planners. And that's why when you see when a SEAL team has a loss of communications, has a failed comms shot, that turns into a fucking major motion picture and a book deal. when a Green Beret team has a loss of comms, you just go into your contingency plan. It's like you planned for it. Like that was the primary. You got the alternate, the contingency, and the emergency. Go through your pace plan. Like it's nothing for us. That's what makes us special. So as an 18 Alpha, we planned our asses off, and then we got a little taste of all the MOSs. So we did a little bit of medical, a little bit of engineering, a little bit of foreign weapons, and a little bit of communication stuff. So like you were sort of all the MOS, you were really bad at all the MOSs and really good at planning. So by the time you showed up to Sage, like that was your like the isolation planning activity at Robin Sage was like, brother, this is I got this down. I'm going to lead this no problem. And I thought that was I thought that's what I was going to bring to the team. Like I'm an expert planner. I just graduated the Q course, the 18 Alpha course. So I'm an expert planner, and I showed up to my team, and every dude on my team could outplan me. They were like the junior E6 18 Bravo, who you'd think would be the knuckle dragger. That guy was like, hey, I do MDMP in my sleep. And I remember one of the first things we did as an ODA was went out and did a company level exercise, and each of the teams did their isolation. And I was like, holy shit, man, these motherfuckers can plan circles around me. I better step up my game. And so the 18 Alpha course was all planning. And it used to be that the Q course for everyone was a lot of planning. That went away starting when you were starting to go through. We started altering the Q course to meet the demands of the GWAT. Whereas it used to be a guy would go in the Q course, he'd graduate with the bare minimum, but a lot of planning, lots and lots of planning. And then when you got to your ODA as a junior, your senior would teach you all the skills. You'd learn combat marksmanship. You learn medicine. You learn all that stuff. Well, the GWAT kicks off, and we're deploying guys so quickly that they're not getting to do the train up with their juniors and seniors. And then so the demand signal comes from the regiment back to the Q course saying, hey, we need to add combat marksmanship into the Q course. Okay, we'll add combat marksmanship, but we have to take out a planning session. Okay, no problem. We'll do planning. No big deal. And then the message comes back, hey, we need to add combat lifesaver into the Q course. We don't have time. We're deploying too quickly to train these guys. Add that into the Q course. Okay, we'll add that into the Q course, but we're going to take out another planning exercise. So what we ended up with in the mid 2000s was, like 2013, 2014, was this Q course that had much less planning and a lot of this extra stuff, not bad stuff, just extra stuff that wasn't in the original Q course. And we start to draw down our deployments, and we're like, hey, we don't need these guys to have all this medical, all this combat marksmanship, and all this comms training. We need them to have planning, because what we're finding is that where we're running into issues is we're becoming like SEALs, and we're not able to plan those contingencies and sequels, and that's what we were really good at. So when we redesigned the Q course circa 2017, when the Night Letter came out and all that drama, what they did was turn the Q course back into what it was supposed to be, to turn Green Berets into expert planners. And the Q course that we run today is very, very good. We are back to what it should be, to turn Green Berets into really good planners. You still get tons of medical, and the MOSs still get all the great medical stuff, all the great MOS stuff, but we brought back that planning, because that's what's going to save us in the long run. That's really where the rubber meets the road. So
that helps me fit into my narrative of that I was in the first easy class. So thank you for that. That helps.
So if you went through in 13, 14, right? You went through the Q course. Yeah, that was right. We were just starting to make those realizations, because we were doing that analysis in like 2011, 12 timeframe. We were digging into like, okay, what have we fucked up so far? And then we started making small adaptations to that. So you may have been in one of those classes that was in that transitional phase. And by 17, 18, 19, they kind of had it figured out. And what the Q course they taught all through COVID and up to today is really, really tight. It's a really tight Q course. It's good. It does exactly what it says it's going to do.
That's interesting. And it wasn't easy. It was fucking difficult, but
it's fucking hard fucking did it.
Now, I will say that it is disappointing that they don't have another land nav in the Q course, because, but I understand why they did it, because when we went out there in 2013, I don't have, this is not exact number, but there's well over 200 people out there. And if you got 5 for 5, you got to go home. And there was only 50
Yeah.
people on that bus. And the
Yeah.
next night, only 20 people passed the second night. So 70 people out of well into the 200s
Yeah.
got, all those people got dropped, like fucking
Well,
dropped or
land
recycled or
nav
some
is my
shit.
jam, man. That's my whole identity. When I went through selection, you didn't have to pass the STAR course in selection. You had to pass the STAR course, but you had 4 opportunities. 2 of those opportunities were in selection, and then you could pass selection and not have passed STAR. Now I passed it because I was in the last hard course, but I passed selection, the STAR course in selection. But there were many guys that didn't. It was just an assessment. It was like, hey, we're gonna assess you. We're gonna train you again in the Q course during SUT during phase 1, and then you had 2 more opportunities. So if you had already passed it in selection, you got like those 4 days were like just planning stuff. Like you didn't have to go out and do anything. So it was there was a big incentive to pass it early on. But I we got to do more than that. Listen, if there's one thing we know about great power competition is that we're likely going to be in a GPS denied environment. So if you can't land nav, man, like you're SOL. You're in for a hurt. So I think we need to have more land nav. Matter of fact, I think we should have so much land nav that they should pay me a massive contract to run it for them, and I'll do it. I got the curriculum all set up, but I think that's a diminishing skill that we have to bring back.
Just a shameless plug right
Shameless
there.
plug.
If you guys are looking for
Every
a
chance I get.
massive government contract to
That's
unload
right.
on,
That's right. I'm a
my
disabled veteran, man.
driveway.
I deserve the contract.
Yeah, sure. That's good. Did you ever take a company?
No, no.
Did you ever
I
think about
left
that?
group. The last time I was in group was an ops officer, and I left and went elsewhere. So no, I never commanded a company in an SF group.
Did you want to?
I did. I get that question a lot. Is when it comes to like what is it to do post team time? And frankly, I think that there's less challenge in that, because when you're in group and you're an ODA or you're a company, you're a battalion commander, like you get all the best of everything. You get the best guys, you get the best missions, you get all the benefits of all that. There's not a ton of challenge to it. Well, now listen, I would have loved to have had a company and have been a battalion commander and all that, but there was not a ton of challenge there. And I think while I would have enjoyed it and I would have been good at it, I don't know that I would have found it as challenging as the other assignments that I took. And I took some really challenging assignments. And so that shit was really fun to me. Like when I did XO time in SWIC, I was the XO for the Advanced Skills Battalion. So free fall, combat dive, Safar Tech, and ASOT. And then I was going to go back to JSOC and do JSOC stuff. And the SWIC commander at the time said, where are you going? He was a former Delta commander, had been in JSOC his whole career. And he wasn't wowed by I'm going to JSOC. He was like, fuck you. You're going where I tell you to go, Walton. You're going to go do this new thing. You're going to create our education department and our human dynamics department. And I'm like, that doesn't exist. And this is my overseeing the Valley in Upikistan moment. He was like, fucking figure it out. You're going to develop these programs and you're going to fucking figure it out. And I was like, that's a challenge. Like, I'll fucking do that. Like, and it had never been done before. And he was like, you're in charge, go figure it out. Tell me what you need. And I'll run top cover for you. And that's what I did. And so we created these education programs. We created the human dynamics department that is today what has become Thor 3, which is ubiquitous in groups now. Like that thing was that program, that human performance element of special forces was on life support when I got a hold of it, and I created it at SWIC. I got the funding for it. I got it palmed. I created the programs, and then from there we spread it out into the group. So I take great pride in knowing that that human performance stuff that we take for granted now would not exist had I not been given that challenge. And if I had a traditional battalion command, I did that as an 05, I would not have gotten to do that. So the way I look at it is that if you are in command of a company, you can impact 100 guys. That's how many guys are in a company. If you command a battalion, you can impact 400 guys. But if you go to one of these weird positions at the fourth generation level at SWIC, like you're impacting entire generations. If you fuck up the Q course, you are fucking up entire generations of Green Berets. Likewise, if you get it right, if you like fix it, if you make it so it works, you are fixing an entire generations of Green Berets. That to me is much more challenging, and I feel much more fulfilled having done that. So if I had followed a traditional career path, I wouldn't have done this weird shit, the figure it out shit. I would have done the conventional stuff. I think anybody could do that because you get all the best assets, you get the best guys, you get all the authorities and all that business. You get this assignment where it's go figure this shit out, and it's like, man, that's a real challenge. So I think we do ourselves a disservice when we look at those other assignments as less than. So I didn't look at it that way, and I'm happy. I'm glad I didn't, because I got to do all this amazing other stuff. I got to go chase down drug runners in Central America, jumping out of helicopters in the dead of the night. I wouldn't have gotten to do that if I'd have said, "Oh, I want to stay on the normal path." So I feel much more fulfilled having done that other stuff.
It's important to point out, like, there's all this cool shit you can do, and this is just like your little story and like my little story. There's like, if you choose to go down this career path and go for it, and then you do make it, it's gonna be worth it. You have something you have for the rest of your career, the rest of your life. You say, I got it. Even if you choose to get out right away or something happens like I did, it was over right away, right? I still a Green Beret. Sergeant Major said after I got out, you're still a Green Beret for the rest of your life. But the opportunities, there's so much shit happening, you can't even know that it's all available to happen. Like, you're going to come up with something, be like, I never thought that I would ever think this was a possibility.
Your field of view is this big. It's this big. And then when you allow yourself to think about other ways of doing stuff, like once I said, I really don't care about battalion command. So when you're a young lieutenant, you measure your worth in your ability to get a tactical battalion command. That is considered success for all officers. Tactical battalion command. So that is success. So then logically, if you don't get a tactical battalion command, then you would be unsuccessful. Well, less than 10% of officers get tactical battalion commands. I think it's 5%. Are you telling me that 90 to 95% of us are unsuccessful? No, you just got to look at what is success differently. I don't know I never had a single battalion commander that was on his first marriage. Not one. Like, is that success? Do I have to sacrifice my family? Do I have to have some other dude raise my kids? Does somebody else get to sleep with my wife? Is that success? Because by your metric of a tactical battalion command, that's the only way to get there. And I was like, fuck that. Like, I want to do something else. I want to raise my kids. So I started looking at success differently. And so for me, I define success as early or mid-career, right as I was making that decision, do I go back to the traditional pathway or do I do something else? I decided that success for me was staying married, raising good kids, and my kids get to go to the same high school for all 4 years. That was success. So then it was like, okay, what gets me to Bragg? And at the time, 7th Group was moving down to Eglin, and I was like, I don't want to go down to Eglin. I want to stay at Bragg. What guarantees me staying at Bragg? Going to JSOC. So I went to JSOC because that guaranteed me here. And then when opportunity to leave JSOC came, I said, what keeps me here at Bragg? It was SWIC. So I went to SWIC because that's what met the criteria for success for me. And I had to accept that okay, I'm not going to be a tactical battalion commander, but I don't care because I also want to be married and I want my kids to like me, and I want them to go to the same high school for 4 years. So I changed the paradigm of what was success. And once I was able to do that, man, it was like the world of opportunities opened up. It was like, what do you want to go do? There's all these amazing jobs that are not tactical battalion command. What do you want to go do? And I was like, man, what's out there? And it was like, and the branch managers love guys like me because they're always trying to fill those assignments they're always trying to push guys into those. And I was like, I get my pick of all these weird, cool assignments. So like, yeah, I was like, fuck yeah, I want this one and I want this one. And it was like, write your own ticket. And so because I didn't have my success or failure tied up in one specific assignment that only 5% of guys were ever going to get, it was like, man, the world is my oyster. The world is my oyster. I can do anything I want. So it was incredibly liberating in that regards. So when I retired, I was like, I got to do shit that nobody ever thought was possible. And and by the way, my pension is the exact same as the guys that are on their third marriage and got tactical battalion command. Congratulations. Like you won. What did you win? Like how much alimony and child support are you paying? Because I'm not paying
I
any.
was just gonna point out theirs is actually less than yours because their ex-wife's getting most of it.
Yeah, they got to split it.
So different experiences, shit happens.
And I'm not denigrating that. Like I get it, life happens and all that business. It's hard. It's hard to keep a marriage. Divorce rate in special forces is 2 to 3 times higher than the conventional force. I get it. It's a challenge. But to me, that would have been failure. I did not want that to be what I measured success as. And once I did that, man, it was wide open. So I retired incredibly satisfied. I did not have a single regret.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's good. I talked to you probably know him, Chuck Ritter. And the other day, we talked about regret, and he's like, if you regret one thing, then you got to regret this little thing over there. And I don't regret a fucking thing. I wouldn't change a goddamn thing. Even getting hurt, like I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm pretty.
You wouldn't be who you are.
I wouldn't be who I am. Yeah, and it could all be different. Could be worse. It could be worse. You change something. I don't regret anything, even the way it was, because I'm pretty good now. I feel great. I'm physically fit. I'm recovered mostly. There's still obviously stuff that I can't do, or I would be back on an ODA.
Hey, brother, you either win or you learn, and you learn.
Yeah. And then what's my joke? It's great. I get a check on the first of every month, and I'm afraid of the ocean, which is nice. But a little about dive school. You went. When did they send you? Did you have to go before you got to a team, or did the team sergeant say you're going?
I went to Ranger School 3 times. The last time I went and finally graduated was right before I took my team. So I en route from the Q course to my team, I went to Ranger School. And in the Florida phase in Ranger School, I was bit by a snake on my hand and spent 3 days in the ICU. It's a great story. Spent 3 days in the ICU, graduated on time, but was fucked up. Like I literally couldn't use my right arm or my left arm for like a couple of weeks. And so, just the muscle atrophy. So I graduated Ranger School. Still all fucked. I mean, you're fucked up from Ranger School because you're emaciated, but I was also a snake bite victim. And I immediately get to group. I got to rush to group. I get to group. I sign in, and my battalion commander is a guy he grew up in Delta, and he's taking his battalion command. And I go and I meet him, and I'm new captain reporting in, and he calls that hey, great to have you. We're going to send you to this team. And he calls down to the company and says, "Hey, Bill, it's Mike. I'm going to send down this new Captain Wally, and he's coming down. He just got out of Ranger School. Make sure that motherfucker grows his hair out." And I'm like, "God damn, man! Like, what the fuck? I just got out of Ranger School. What do you want me to do?" So he go down to see your company commander. I go down to see my company commander. My company commander says, "Hey, welcome, congratulations on Ranger School. I was the honor graduate, and Ranger School had notified my unit, and so they knew who I was and everything. So I had a little bit of a celebrity status. But he's like, "Hey, congratulations on Ranger School. We're going to send you to dive school. Pre-scuba starts next week." And I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you don't understand. I don't have full function of my fucking arm. Like, I'm not going to fucking scuba school." And he said, "Oh, okay. Well, we're going to send you to a dive team, and you're going to go to the next pre-scuba." So I immediately take the team. They were actually deployed. They came home about a week and a half later, and I'm sitting in the team room waiting for them, and they're like, "Hey, new captain's here. Good." And my team sergeant, the assignment he had before he took the team was the lead instructor down at Key West. So he was like Scuba Joe. Like he was like, I'm a Scuba Steve. I'm going to get you squared away. Ain't no way I'm sending my captain down there and he's going to fail scuba school. So like I'm just gaining full function of my arm back, and this motherfucker's got me in the pool doing fucking all the pre-scuba shit, just smoking my ass left and right. So I went within about 6 months. I went down to dive school, got my bubble first time go. Great experience. I swam competitively growing up, so I was always comfortable in the water. And of course, like I said, um, I couldn't do much, but I could do PT and I could do planning and land nav apparently. So like the PT wasn't hard for me. He taught me all the skills I needed. I showed up down to Key West and got my bubble, and the rest is history. And then then I'm on the team and we deployed, and so I got my bubble in January of 2001. Did a full train up with the team, and then we deployed that summer. We were in Bolivia, and that's 9/11 happens, and now the world has changed. And I did a whole nother year on the ODA with them. Went to I've deployed to every country in Central and South America, and only a few of them with my team. Everything else I did post team time. So I got the full depth and breadth of the Latin American experience, and I did all that before I ever went to Iraq or Afghanistan. So I got a ton of. My wife and I were sitting down the other day, and we were recounting our 20 years, and we figured out that I spent 14 of those 20 years deployed or otherwise not sleeping in my own bed. Like I was gone a shit ton. So my team time was both traditional and non-traditional in that regards. And then my post team time was incredibly non-traditional. I did all the JSOC stuff. I did all the SWIC stuff that I would have never done if I'd have just said I'm doing the normal thing. And it's weird because in my battalion, at least I was in 1st Battalion, the normal pathway was that if you sent your high performers to dive teams. I stumbled into mine, to be clear. And as soon as a guy got his dive bubble, you came back, and immediately your next step was to do one of the smooth selections. And it was like, so I came back from dive school and like, hey, when you taking the long walk? And I was like, brother, I'm on an ODA. Like I'm just got to my team. I'm not going anywhere. But it was sort of like they laid it out for you, like it was expected of you. And I don't know of any senior NCO on any of those teams that didn't try out for one of the special mission units. It was just like the thing that you did. Like scuba school was the unspoken prerequisite for it.
Do you think that's a group specific thing or a Fort Bragg specific thing?
I think so. I think that was a 7th group thing. 7th group was also known as the 7th Ranger Battalion. If you were an officer and you did not have your Ranger tab, you were a second-class citizen. It was like you got eye fucked. Like who the fuck's this tabless bitch walking around? So like that's why I was so keen to get my Ranger tab. I wanted it badly for my own personal reasons, but like if you're going to 7th group, like you better have that triple canopy, you better have that tower of power, or you're going to be, particularly as an officer, you're going to be seen as second class. So I have always carried that chip on my shoulder. I still tab check dudes to this day.
I limited experience, but for all my purview at group, I only remember 2 of the guys going to the long walk that I knew of, and I knew quite a lot of people where I was.
It was very normal in my circle. Of course, I was in the dive circle, and those dudes are all fucking weirdo body Nazis, and physical fitness is like just something that's like they take to the extreme. But it was a very normal thing for us. We also had a disproportionate number of former Ranger Battalion guys that went to dive teams, and Ranger Battalion into the special mission units is a normal pathway. So maybe that influenced in some way, but it was a very normal thing for us. And it was just sort of like it was expected that you were going to go. And I remember my battalion commander, when I was coming up and into my team time, I said, "Hey, I want to go do this thing." And he said, I'm begging you, I need you for 1 year as the OPSO. If you do a year as my OPSO, I'll give you the best letter of recommendation you could ever want, and I'll guarantee you'll get it. You'll get an invite. And so I did a year of penance as the OPSO, and then he came through, and I went and did my thing. But it was just sort of like it was what you were going to go do next. So That was the expectation for me, rather than company command, tactical battalion command. I was going to go do cool guy stuff. So
Is there anything you wish you would have got to do, even like a small school or a cool
there
assignment or just
is
one little thing?
there 100%, and I said I don't have any regrets, and that's a lie.
Here we go.
When I was in Afghanistan, this is probably 2007, and it was we were weathered out that night. In the wintertime, the weather blows in, and your missions won't go because there's no ISR overhead. You can't get any fires in. The helicopters can't fly. So we were weathered out, and I was sitting around in the jock. I was in JSOC, and I was sitting around the jock, and I was talking to the regimental commander, the 75th regimental commander, and and he'd been feeling me out for a couple of weeks. He pulled me aside and asked me these weird questions, like, "What do you think about this?" and "What do you think about that?" and "What's your background?" and "How do you think about this stuff?" And it felt weird. It felt like it was like they were like job interview questions, and I always thought it was really odd. And then this one night, he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, we are turning the regimental reconnaissance detachment, the RRD, into a regimental reconnaissance company, an RRC, and that has a major in command of it. And I'd like you to try out and be the first company commander for the RRC." And I was like, whoa, holy shit, man, here's a fucking opportunity. I did not grow up in the Ranger Regiment, so I was not a homegrown guy. You would think that they would pick a guy that had sort of proven his value to the regiment. And he asked me that, and I was blown away. I remember thinking, like, wow, what an amazing opportunity. But I had just gone through the mental process of deciding that I wanted to stay at Bragg, and I wanted my kids to stay in the same school and have the same friends. And my wife and I had a very long heart to heart discussion about it, and it was not without some pain that we made that decision. And so we were putting down deep roots in North Carolina at Bragg, and when he made this offer, and I struggled with it mightily. I really struggled with it. I went so far as to call my wife and say, I've been made this offer. It's kind of an offer you can't refuse. It's like the opportunity of a lifetime to be the plank holder company commander for the RC. And we just decided that it was the timing wasn't right. It wasn't meant to be. I prayed real hard on it, and it just said, I'm here for a reason. And I turned it down, turned down the offer. I still would have had to go to RASP and been selected and pass the board. But I turned that down. So I do regret that. I don't regret that I didn't serve in that capacity. I regret that I turned down that challenge, because it would have been a unique challenge. And I found out about a year later, I was in Iraq, and I was talking with another SF guy who was a prior service enlisted guy in the Ranger Regiment, had his combat scroll from Panama, and was very well known and well liked in the regiment, but was now a Green Beret. And he got the next offer. He got the offer to go after I did, and went to RASP 2, and then went to the board. And at the board, the question they asked him was, if you get selected for this job, are you going to wear your Green Beret, or are you going to wear the tan beret? And he was like, I don't care. Doesn't matter to me. Like, whatever you guys want me to care. Like, for him, it was like a nothing question, which is probably how I would have answered. I'd have been like, I don't care. You tell me what you want me to do. It's a like, you're a Green Beret. You're like, fuck it. I don't want to wear anything. I want my beautiful hair to show. And he did not get selected because of the way he answered that question. They didn't like his answer. They told him later. So I'm like, oh man, like, how disappointed would I have been if I had accepted the invitation to go to RASP, and then I would have been at the board, and they would have asked me that same question, and I would have given the same answer, and they'd have told me no. I'd have been like, fuck you. Like, what kind of bullshit is this? So it ended up being, so I do regret that I didn't accept that challenge, but I don't regret that I didn't get the assignment. I probably wouldn't have gotten it anyways, because I would have asked the same question. Maybe they wouldn't have asked me that question because I didn't have the scroll. But that is a regret that I have, because I didn't challenge myself, and I never back down from a challenge, and that's one that I backed down from. So that's my only regret.
Well, I was sitting over here and you're saying that, and I was like, I know the correct answer, but I know what he would have said also.
I shall wear the tan beret with pride, my Ranger
That's
regiment.
the
So
correct. That's
that's the
obviously
correct
the
answer. But I
correct
wouldn't have answered
answer.
that way because that would have been authentic and honest. And I'd have said, fuck do I care?
No, I
So,
was a board baby. I want to win that fucking board, and I would
yep.
have won the board. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but fuck, that's awesome, man. So, did you do? I think your bio said you did 25 years.
I did 20 years active, 2 years in the reserves, and then I stayed on. I'm still serving today. I work for SOCOM. I'm a contract instructor in JSOC. Still living the dream, still serving, and loving life.
Yeah, man. Did that make the transition? Because you said you took your PTO, or not your
I did.
PTO.
When I first retired, I went into straight academia. I worked for the National Defense University. I was an associate professor of national security affairs. And I was running a master's program here in Fort Bragg for special operators. So I was right back in the mix, and all of my students were active duty mid career officers and NCOs, right back into the team mentality, right back into the fight. So it was a great transition. I didn't have to take a PT test, but I still got to be essentially a company commander. I was essentially own these guys for a year. They come in, they was their full-time job to be a full-time student with me. And we ran this program. I had 8 faculty that worked for me, and I got to be a full-blown nerd academic. I was teaching policy analysis and critical thinking and research design, and I did that for like 7-8 years. The great thing about academia is that you get to do whatever you want. The bad thing about academia is that you have to work with academics, and they are some of the worst people you can imagine. If you think that Green Berets are narcissists, go work with these people. And the limitations of academia have been laid bare over COVID, when we saw and continue to see how rotten higher education is. So I got out at just the right time. I got an offer to come back to JSOC and be an instructor there, and I grabbed hold of that with both hands, and I left academia. So while I'm still an instructor in an academic capacity, it is back in the operational force, and it is teaching operational things, and I could not be happier. And because I'm no longer a GS employee, I'm now a contract employee. It frees me up to I have a lot more freedom over my own intellectual property. I can publish books now. If I would not be able to publish any of my books here, if I had been a GS employee, I would have been the intellectual property of the university, and I would have never gotten clearance to talk about that stuff. So it was a blessing in disguise that I left that right as I was getting into the meat of representing selection in this new light, and the timing was perfect. I became a contractor, got to write the books, and I would not have gotten to do that otherwise. So it turned out really, really well, and it keeps me here at Bragg, right? I've been here almost 30 years. So,
As your website said, the center of the universe.
center of the universe, baby.
Oh,
And listen, we got the name Bragg back. I predicted that was going to happen long before the wheels were set in motion. I had little stickers made up that said "Reclaim Your Legacy," and it was the old sign of Fort Bragg, home of the special operations. And we got it back, man. We won.
it. I thought it was pretty cool how he did that.
Yeah, I thought
But
it was
I
too.
like on your website also. I wrote down one thing here. It said no confidential TTPs. All
Yeah,
rules matter all the time.
that's it,
So,
man.
the popular thing with SFIs is operating in the gray area. With what you're
Yeah.
doing, there's no gray area, right? You're on the
I think many people think there is a gray area. The people that the criticism that I get from my work. So let's be clear. I tell guys what the operational environment at selection is. In my first book, Ruck Up or Shut Up. This is it. Published this 2 years ago, and what it is a descriptive account of SFAS. It is the truth about SFAS. But even though I have all of that experience, I know all the secrets. I know all of the standards. I helped develop many of them. I know exactly what goes on out there. I do not give away any of those secrets. All the secret sauce of my books is, and I mentioned it earlier, is that SWIC has endorsed many academic projects, peer-reviewed articles, where it describes in detail what goes on at selection. The problem is that if you're a wannabe operator, an aspiring candidate, those are academic articles and they read like academic articles. It's full-blown nerdery. Like it'll fucking put you to sleep. It'll cure insomnia. So what I did was take all of those existing sources and analyze and interpret them and put them into a popular media. I put them into my book, into the context of my descriptive storytelling. So I do not tell any of the secrets. In my mind, there is no gray area because the only stuff that I cite is the stuff that Swick already cited. It was already in the public domain. So when I get criticisms of my work, when guys say, "Oh, you're cheating," it's guys that have not read my work. They don't know what I did. They think that it's, "Oh, he's giving away all the secrets." He's telling them. I had a guy tell me once, "Oh, I know what you do. You teach guys how to cheat on the psych eval." And it's like, fucking hell, brother. I literally write in the book, you can't cheat on the psych eval. You owe it to yourself just to take it honestly. Like, so I'm the opposite of cheating on the psych eval. I'm the guy telling them you can't cheat on the psych eval. And so when I have guys criticize me and say, "Oh, you teach guys how to cheat on the psych eval," I'm like, no, I don't. And you would know that if you read my work. So while I think many people believe that I am operating in a gray area, I absolutely am not. All the rules matter all the time. I signed a non-disclosure agreement. I have not violated that non-disclosure agreement. Everything that I discuss in my books already existed in a different context. I put it into my context, my storytelling, and I tell the truth. But I do not give away the standards. All the rules matter. Nothing confidential is released. It was all already out there. You got to be able to pull all those disparate sources together and synthesize it. That's what I'm skilled at. So that's all I did. So I don't think it's the gray area at all.
All right. So we've talked about attrition rates and the pool of soldiers to pull from and the ones that are actually willing to go do it now and then make it to make it to selection. Do you think you and the other guys in the same field as you are I don't want to say making a difference, but keeping that attrition rate from being even further down?
Yeah, boy, man, I question that. When you see the numbers, I think so. I said it before and I'll say it again. I think selection is harder now than it's ever been. So if it's harder now than it's ever been, and we are still producing at or near historical numbers, then we must be doing something right. If nothing else, we are doing it better. So, for example, you and I passed selection without the benefit of a guide, a manual, a book written by a former Green Beret. We just figured it out. And along the way, we fucked up a lot of stuff, including our bodies. Like we destroyed our backs, our hips. We will not know the damage we did to our hips and knees until we are old men and we are crippled. All of that stuff is knowable and fixable. Like that's just exercise science. So what I and the others in the discipline, the Kevin Edgertons, the John Hamiltons, the Kevin Smiths, what we are doing is eliminating that unnecessary risk factor of let's get guys prepared without fucking breaking them in half. And if we can do that, maybe we can keep guys that were already going to become operators. Maybe we can keep them in the fight longer. So maybe that guy's not so broken. Maybe he can do an extra 4 or 5 years on a team because his back isn't totally fucked up because he didn't just do ruck running with 150 pounds on his back. He did the slow, progressive way that we know how to do. Like that's exercise science. We know that the literature is overwhelmingly clear. All I did was bring that literature to light. So we may not be making a difference in the raw number of guys that are getting through selection, but the guys that are getting through selection are in a much better position to be long-term operators. And that's really the goal, right? I want that guy to be operating longer, and I want operating at a higher level longer. And when he's done operating, I don't want him to be broken like I am. I don't want him to have his spine fused and his fucking knees predicting the weather 3 days before the weatherman does. So if we can do that, if I only do that, awesome. The other thing that we are doing though is that we are winning the information war. We are not giving those barracks lawyers the opportunity to make their argument, because that's a bad argument. It's false, and it holds the regiment in the wrong light. It discredits the brother. It discredits my brothers that are in the pipeline doing the work the right way. So if I do nothing else other than that, then it's a victory in my mind.
What's the one thing that like stands out for you that's the most rewarding for you about what you're doing?
I love this. It's I get, so I'm the focal point for a lot of young aspiring candidates. And some of these guys are elite athletes already, D1 collegiate athletes, and they're applying that towards something else. But I also get a fair amount of comments and commentary from kids that had no fucking fighting chance. Kids that were 300 pounds as seniors in high school and didn't know shit about anything. Never had a father figure in their life. Never had anybody tell them to get their shit together. Never held them accountable for anything. And these guys will reach out and say, hey, man, I've been reading your stuff. I lost 150 pounds. I lost 100 pounds. I'm doing zone 2 running. I can deadlift twice my body weight. I'm confident. You changed my life, man. And I'm gonna be a Green Beret someday. And I'm like, fucking hell, man. That kid was dead in 10 years until he stumbled across, my words of I'll say wisdom, but my words of advice. And that's incredibly rewarding. And that was really the first time it hit me. It was a couple of years ago, and a kid reached out to me, and he'd said just that to me. He said, I lost 150 pounds. I'm off of all my meds, and I just enlisted. I'm got an 18 X-ray contract. And he said, brother, you saved my life. And I was like, fucking hell, man. Are you kidding me? Don't put that shit on me. That's rewarding to me. So, every time we just had a class graduate selection, and every time a class graduates selection, my inbox starts pinging with guys that went out there, and it's guys that made it and guys that didn't make it, and they'll thank me. They're like, man, you were the reason why I started this thing. And I think you're the reason why I got through it. And I'm like, brother, that's why I said in 10 years, there's going to be a dude in every team room in USASOC that's going to be able to, in some small part, I will played a role in him being there. That is rewarding. So it goes back to my point earlier about, if you're a company commander, you help 100 guys. You're a battalion commander, you help 300 guys. If you write a book that every single aspiring candidate reads, you're helping generations of Green Berets. And that's what I'm doing. And I see the book sale numbers. We've sold twice as many books as guys that have gone to selection. So it's out there. And that's rewarding to me.
Okay. Well, my book budget is at 0 right now. So, but when it comes back up, I'll get a book so I can have it back here on my stack.
I'm sending them to you. I'm sending them to you tonight. They'll be in the mail to you tomorrow.
I got 5 questions here I ask everybody.
Let's do it.
I'll cut you loose. What's your response to thank you for your service?
I say one of two things. I say, thanks for paying your taxes, or you're welcome. I never understand the guys that get offended by that. Why do you get angry when someone says thank you for your service? Like they don't, it's not coming from a place of vitriol or damnation. They're thanking you for your service. And by the way, you fucking served. Like you did it. You did the thing. Like just accept it. Like you don't have to make a big thing of it. Just thanks for paying your taxes, or thank you. That's it. I don't make any drama out of it.
No. People give quite different answers for that, but yeah, it was an honor, because it really was. It was an honor. Thank you. What's the one characteristic that sets operators apart from the conventional forces?
Adaptability, 100% adaptability. You can take a Green Beret and put him in any situation and he'll figure it the fuck out. That's the proverbial Valiant ass Krakistan, figured out. Green Berets figure shit out. We are yes men, and that there is nothing. It actually pisses my wife off. She'll ask me, "Can you do like?" And before it's out of her mouth, I'm saying, "Yes, I can." Whatever it is, I'll fucking figure it out. Whether it's laying brick or pouring foundations in the backyard, whether it's growing a garden, whether it's keeping a marriage alive, whether it's raising great kids, whether it's writing a book, whether it's starting a podcast, operators will fucking figure it out. That's what makes us so. That's what makes us a strategic asset. Is that the enemy has to account for 5 active duty and 2 National Guard groups of weird, hyper motivated dudes that will figure shit out. How the fuck do you plan for that? Like, how do you beat us? Like, you can't, because we'll just fucking figure it out. We like that shit. Joke's on you. I like that shit. So that's what makes us greater than anybody else, is our adaptability. 100%.
What is the one moment of your career that you wish you could go back and relive or redo?
Ooh, boy. I think maybe my promotion to major. I was stationed in Honduras. It was a hardship tour, not really all that hard, but it was a geo bachelor tour, and I got to fly my family down, my young kids and my wife, and we're down there in the beautiful tropics, and they got to be there to watch me get promoted. That was a special moment, because it was it was it was all about the family. It wasn't so much about me. We were celebrating my rising to the field grade level, which is a pretty significant moment for an officer. So I think that's one I cherish a lot. That's one of my favorite. I have a picture of that, of my wife and my kids and I, just with my fresh oak leaf cluster, and I like that a lot. I think one of the other moments would be watching my guys retire. When I get to go to retirement ceremonies for guys that served with me, not necessarily under me, but with me, and seeing those guys, reach the finish line is incredibly satisfying. I'll never get tired of that. I get to relive a little bit of that every time a guy calls me and says, "I got selected." I'm like, "Fuck yeah. We reached a major milestone." So I think that's one of the things that keeps me going now, is I get to relive that time and time again.
Love that. What is the best piece of advice that you received during your career?
You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking. Now, I fucking challenge that every day, because I will never shut up. But you learn a lot by just listening, but I think it's more important who you listen to. And my very first encounter with a non-commissioned officer was Master Sergeant Robinson. He was my instructor in ROTC, old Ranger guy. And he said, just listen to your NCOs. I never always says that. Listen to your NCOs. I was blessed that I had really good NCOs. So it goes back to that listening, but be careful who you listen to. Make sure you've got good NCOs. I was incredibly lucky that I had good NCOs. So that's the best advice I could give.
Next one, man. What were you afraid of then, and what are you afraid of now?
Heights. Man, I'm scared to death of heights. Hardest thing I ever did was go to free fall school. I'll never forget my the lead instructor at free fall school. He was a SEAL, and Ed was his name. And he was perpetually angry. And this is great advice. This goes back to what you said earlier. And he said to the whole class, he said, "We just got there. You're excited. You're getting ready to jump out of the airplane." And he says, "The moment you step off the ramp of that aircraft, you are fucking dead until you rescue yourself every single time by pulling that ripcord." And I was like, "Oh man, that's fucking badass." Like, so I'm scared to death of heights, but I'm in charge of pulling that ripcord. So whatever I face from here on out, whatever the next fear is, the fear of fear of the next career, the fear of the next project, the fear of publishing the next book. I'm in charge. I'm my hands on that ripcord. I save my own life every time. That's empowering, man. Like you're in charge, be in charge of yourself. Love that.
And now?
I fear that that I fear that I'm not making the impact that I originally thought I was going to make. My fear now, although many of my fears are assuaged now, because my biggest fear was that I wouldn't raise good kids, that I would fuck those kids up. You know what I mean? Like I'd be one of those guys that had a broken marriage, whose kids didn't like you, and so I used to be really afraid of that, and so my wife and I spent a lot of time on it, and I don't take any credit for my kids being normal. My wife raised them. I was gone for 14 years. But I used to be really afraid that my kids weren't going to be normal. So every time I see my kids doing something well, my son gets his pilot wings, my daughter's getting ready to graduate grad school. When they do those amazing things, I feel a little bit less fear, because I feel like that's my legacy I'm leaving into the next generation. My gift to society is productive citizens as kids, and maybe in some small way, my work with TF Voodoo and mentoring these young kids going into the pipeline is an extension of that. But I fear that a little bit less every day. But I think I fear that my impact will not be what I thought it was. But like I said, every time my selection class graduates, I get emails and phone calls from guys saying, "Man, you made a difference." So I don't fear that quite as much as I used to.
All right, man. Dr. Dave Walton, tell everybody how they can find you on the social media and where to look for your book.
Find me on Instagram. I'm at TF_VOO_DOO, TF Voodoo. I got a YouTube channel. I do land nav stuff. If you want to reach out to me, get me through Instagram. I'm on there way more than I should be, especially for a 54-year-old. I got no business being on the internet that much, but that's how you reach me.
And I will have links to your socials and everything up in the show description. If you listen to the episode this far and you are looking for the secret to selection, it's that to just do your best and not leave anything on the table, because
rock up or shut up.
We're not going to fucking tell you. And I don't even care. I got mine over there.
I got mine.
In the business. Yeah. So, oh, it was great talking to you. I appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Nick.
You got anything for me?
No, sir.
Appreciate it. Bye, everybody.